Chapter 38. Xiao Yu estimated that it would be very difficult for him to find a safe place between the outer area and the core area of the desolate ancient forest. The group of cultivators near the Rockfall Desert knew that he had a treasure and would definitely chase after him endlessly. They were in groups and were not afraid of the monsters in the outer area of the desolate ancient forest. Therefore, Xiao Yu followed his memory and flew all the way to the valley where he had stayed for more than 5 years. The valley was still as quiet and peaceful as before. There were no monsters here, only the sound of birds and the fragrance of flowers. Xiao Yu let the Star Chaser land in front of the tunnel that led to the ancient god's cave, and then put it away. This is already deep in the desolate ancient forest. Those guys probably won't be able to chase me here, right? Xiao Yu muttered to himself as he walked into the tunnel. Although the tunnel was dark, it was very safe. Xiao Yu quickly reached the end of the tunnel and then crashed into the seemingly solid stone wall. The stone wall did not stop Xiao Yu, and he easily passed through it and arrived at the ancient god's cave. He was very familiar with everything here. After living here for a few years, he was familiar with every corner of this place. He had been away for quite some time, but this place had not changed at all. Xiao Yu took out a large jade bed from his storage bracelet and sat cross-legged on it. He began to organize his thoughts and recall what he had done in the Feiyu continent all these years. He felt that he had been very careful. Unfortunately, he had still made some mistakes. The reason why he had made those mistakes was because he was not familiar with the ways of the cultivation world. In the past, Jiang Langyue had only told him about the general situation of the cultivation world and some strange things. She did not tell him too much about the dangers of the cultivation world. With Jiang Lanyue's height, she naturally did not think that the cultivation world was that dangerous. When she was traveling in the cultivation world, although she had been to many places, she rarely interacted with other cultivators. At the same time, Xiao Yu realized that even if she did not want to cause trouble, as long as she was in the cultivation world, as long as she wanted to improve quickly and become stronger, trouble would automatically come knocking on her door. She could not possibly lock herself up to cultivate all the time, right? He always needed to go out and get some cultivation materials. He always needed to find his friends and family. This caused him to helplessly discover that he could only continue to improve his strength until he could run amok in the world without any scruples. Only then could he live a peaceful and happy life one day. After pondering for 2 days, when Xiao Yu opened her eyes again, her expression was full of determination. It was as if she had set her sights on a certain goal, or as if she had made up her mind. In the following period of time, Xiao Yu had been refining pills every day. His success rate was still very low, but he had prepared enough materials to ensure that he had a chance to refine the finished product. After half a year, Xiao Yu stopped concocting pills and closed his eyes to meditate. His injuries had already healed. Through concocting pills, Xiao Yu discovered that his spiritual sense realm had been improving, but the speed of this improvement was a little slow. When Xiao Yu had recovered to his peak state, with a thought, 2 bottles of pills appeared in front of him. These 2 bottles of pills were meridian-nurturing pills and meridian-shielding pills, but they were not the pills that Xiao Yu had refined recently. He did not immediately consume these 2 pills. First, he took out piles of supreme-grade spirit stones from his storage bracelet, almost filling the entire ancient god's cave abode, before consuming the pills. Next, Xiao Yu began to absorb spiritual power and use the chaos essence to transform spiritual power into chaos energy. The supreme-grade spirit stones in the ancient god's cave abode were attracted by the chaos essence and continuously poured into Xiao Yu's body. They gathered near the chaos golden core in his dantian, through his meridians, and gradually formed a vortex of spiritual power. A few days later, Xiao Yu stopped. However, the supreme-grade spirit stones in the cave abode did not seem to be depleted at all. The energy contained in a supreme-grade spirit stone was already very rich for a cultivator of Xiao Yu's cultivation. It was a bit of a fuss for him to use tens of thousands of supreme-grade spirit stones to supply energy around his body. There were 2 reasons why he stopped. First, he had reached the late stage of the Chaos Golden Core, and his cultivation realm was comparable to an out-of-body stage cultivator. Second, even with the help of the Meridian Nurturing Pills and Meridian Shielding Pills, he could not increase his energy absorption to break through to the Chaos Nascent Soul stage. In the process of cultivation, ordinary cultivators would constantly use spiritual power to temper their bodies. This was also because their cultivation was very slow and they had a lot of time. However, Shaolin Yu, who cultivated the 9 Revolutions Chaos formula, could continuously improve his cultivation as long as he had enough energy to support it. However, the prerequisite was that his body could withstand it. There was another very important point. Even if his body could withstand it, and his meridians could still withstand the impact of a large amount of energy, his soul realm was too low. Even if his power could continue to increase, he still needed to have a strong enough soul realm to control his power. The most important reason why most cultivators could not continuously improve their cultivation was not that they did not have enough spiritual power to support their cultivation, but that their soul realm was not high enough. If they forcibly increased their cultivation, it would only cause the uncontrollable energy to explode in their body, and they would end up with the destruction of their body and soul. He also felt that his spiritual sense was showing signs of being unable to control his cultivation, so he did not dare to continue cultivating, even though he had previously refined better pills to protect his meridians. If Shaolin Yu still wanted to rely on the continuous conversion of spiritual power to improve his cultivation, then there were 2 tasks that he had to complete. One was to improve the quality of his physical body so that his meridians would be stronger, and the second was to improve his soul realm. Ordinary cultivators would use a lot of time to slowly solve these 2 tasks, but Shaolin Yu could not bear the feeling of waiting, especially for a long time. It was easy for him to go crazy. He had previously thought about the transformation of his body and soul, and now he was thinking about the transformation of his body and soul in his mind because this was a method that could solve the problem he was facing. The transformation of body and soul could quickly improve the quality of a cultivator's physical body and soul realm. But the cultivation process was a little dangerous and a little perverted. When he thought about how he still had to go out to find his friends and girlfriend, Gu Xiaomin, and how there were still some open enemies and unknown dangers waiting for him outside, Shaolin Yu did not hesitate for too long. If he failed to cultivate, the worst that could happen was death. The earth had already been destroyed, and it was already a gift from the heavens that he was still alive. Why not use this life that he had picked up to fight? After making up his mind, Shaolin Yu took out Silver Moon's broken knife and cut his jade bed into a jade container that looked like a bathtub. Then he released the snake. The snake, which had taken a supreme-grade spirit pill, had recovered from its injuries, but it did not seem to be in good spirits. It had been injured repeatedly, and its heart was full of grievances. It used to be very free and unfettered. Shall I give you a name? Shaolin Yu said to the snake with a smile. Although the snake was always injured, it did not resent Shaolin Yu at all. After all, Shaolin Yu had always been very willing to spend money on it. Not to mention the supreme-grade spirit pill. Even the 3 bottles of 10,000-year-old queen bee nectar were very valuable treasures. However, when it heard that its master wanted to give it a name, it still felt very bored and was not very interested. It was even worried that its master would give it a very unimpressive and childish name. If you don't say anything, it means that you agree. What name should I give you? Shaolin Yu fell into deep thought, and the snake finally showed a trace of concern and expectation. How about I call you Snake Treasure? Shaolin Yu asked with bright eyes. The snake was speechless and could not help but roll its eyes. It even pretended to cough out a mouthful of blood. It was indeed very childish. The snake wanted to cry, but had no tears. It's a little too inexperienced. It's better to be more domineering. Shaolin Yu looked a little embarrassed. When the snake heard this, it nodded repeatedly and opened its bloody mouth, pretending to be fierce, as if to say that it was very domineering. Okay, I've thought of it. I'll call you Devourer of Heaven from now on. Your mouth is so big, Maybe it really has the power to swallow the sky in the future. You also have the blood of the Tsang dragon, so with the dragon in your name, I'm sure the dragons won't mind. Xiaoling Yu explained self-justifiably. The snake was stunned at first, and then it even growled in satisfaction. To be honest, it was not very satisfied, but it was afraid that its master would give it a name similar to Snake Treasure. Devourer of Heaven, now I'll give you the first difficult task after you get a name, and that is to give me a basin of your snake blood in this bathtub. Oh no, it's dragon blood. Xiaoling Yu said solemnly. The snake was even more depressed. It had just been given a name that did not sound very nice, and it was forced to bleed. This master was really a little evil. However, the snake's body was huge, and it had cultivated for many years. There was a lot of blood in its body, and a basin of blood would not affect it at all. Any time it was injured, it would bleed more than a basin of blood, so it obediently completed the task. Looking at the basin of snake blood, Xiaoling Yu took out a lot of materials and threw them directly into the snake blood without any treatment. The serpent is at the later stage of the spirit severing stage. Its blood has a very strong absorption and refining function. Naturally, it is difficult for some low-grade cultivation materials to maintain their original state in the serpent's blood. The essence contained in them is constantly being extracted by the serpent blood. After various materials were added to the snake blood in the jade basin, it began to boil, and steam kept rising from the surface and even made gurgling sounds. Xiaoling Yu took a deep breath, took off his clothes, and entered the snake blood. As soon as he entered the snake blood, Xiaoling Yu only felt that his whole body was a little hot, but after a few breaths, he felt as if his skin was being pricked by hundreds of millions of needles. The pain was not limited to his skin. Soon, the snake blood seeped into his flesh, blood, tendons, bones, and internal organs with a medicinal power. The pain was like 10,000 ants drilling into his heart, causing him to faint directly. But just as he fainted, the snake, who had been instructed by him before, used the mental connection between them to shake his soul and wake him up from his coma. Chapter 39. Xiaoling Yu knew that he could not be in a coma for too long. Otherwise, all his efforts would be in vain. If a cultivator in a coma continued to cultivate like this, he would definitely die. He had to be awake to control the energy in his body so that it would not reject the invasion of the snake blood. He also had to control his energy so that it would not go berserk. This kind of cultivation method that allowed the body to undergo a baptism of tyrannical energy and strengthen everything in the body after tearing it apart was not an exaggeration to say that it was abnormal. If Xiaoling Yu wanted to improve the quality of his body to the point where he could cultivate the chaotic nascent soul, he had to use the blood of demonic beasts at the spirit severing stage and some special materials to concoct this medicinal soup so that his body's toughness would be comparable to that of demonic beasts at the spirit severing stage. Once Xiaoling Yu completed this transformation, the toughness of his flesh and blood would be comparable to that of the serpent. Of course, it could only be compared to the serpent's flesh and blood, but it could not be compared to the serpent's scales. However, Xiaoling Yu still underestimated the energy contained in the blood of the serpent at the late stage of the spirit severing stage. He also underestimated the abnormality of this transformation. At first, he could still hold on. Even if he fainted from time to time, he could still wake up under the call of the serpent. However, after a while, when the medicinal soup worked on his internal organs and head, he could not hold on any longer. After being awakened by the serpent again, Xiaoling Yu still felt that he was losing consciousness. The intense pain made his whole body numb and his consciousness muddled. The serpent could no longer wake him up with the strength that could shake his soul. Just as the serpent was anxious, Xiaoling Yu's internal organs and head began to be broken down and reorganized by the medicinal soup. This process was the most dangerous, even more dangerous than the subsequent transformation of his bones and bone marrow. Xiaoling Yu had to be awake, and he had to be very awake. Under normal circumstances, Xiaoling Yu had already put himself in a situation of certain death. If he could not remain awake during the subsequent transformation, he would only die. However, Even if Xiao Lingyu did not expect it to be so abnormal, he would not take the risk to cultivate if he did not have anything to rely on. At this critical moment, Xiao Lingyu's thoughts moved, and he activated the emerald green bead hidden in his dantian. After the emerald green bead trembled for a while, it released a cool energy. This energy was of a very high grade, even higher than Xiao Lingyu's current chaotic energy. Spiritual energy could not compare to it at all. It instantly circulated through Xiao Lingyu's body, immediately making him feel comfortable. As the cool energy flowed through his body, Xiao Lingyu felt all the pain in his body disappear. However, it only lasted for a moment, but the moment of comfort allowed him to continue. This was because the cool energy not only helped him recover his physical body, but also accelerated and strengthened his body's transformation. It also had the effect of cooling his soul. With the help of the emerald green bead, Xiao Lingyu's transformation was completed without any suspense, and he succeeded. By the time Xiao Lingyu finished cultivating and came out of the basin of medicinal soup had already become a basin of murky black water. His body had absorbed all the useful things, and the impurities in his body and the dregs in the medicinal soup had become this basin of murky black water. Xiao Lingyu, who had yet to put on his clothes, could not help but size himself up. His body looked very different from before. In the past, after he had completed the foundation establishment, his skin looked very sparkling and translucent like fine jade. But now, it looked a little stronger than before. Although there were still no obvious muscles, the color of his skin was not as shimmering as before. Instead, the color of his skin was restrained, showing a kind of wheat-yellow metallic texture. Xiao Lingyu nodded with satisfaction. To be honest, he liked this wheat-yellow skin very much. It looked very healthy, and it was more manly than the translucent jade-like skin from before. After he put on his clothes, he walked to the side of the cave's stone wall and punched the stone wall fiercely. What made Xiao Lingyu depressed was that his punch with all his strength did not cause any damage to the stone wall, nor did it make the stone wall tremble. This is the cave of an ancient god. How can it be easily shaken by my fist? Back then, Jiang Lanyue could not do anything to this stone wall, even with the power of a divine weapon. Xiao Lingyu laughed bitterly at himself. Then he took out some cultivation materials and spirit stones and pinched them with his palm to judge the progress he had made this time. The progress was great. Although it did not make his body as tough as a spiritual weapon as he had imagined before, it was almost the same as the standard of a low-grade spiritual weapon. After meditating for a few days, Xiao Lingyu patted the head of the big snake and said, "Devourer of heaven, let's go out and catch a demonic beast at the late stage of the spirit-severing stage." The big snake was also very bored here. When it heard Xiao Lingyu say this, it immediately became excited, but it was put into the spirit beast bag by Xiao Lingyu. The reason why he wanted to catch a demonic beast at the late stage of the spirit-severing stage was to prepare for the transformation of his soul. With a pet at the late stage of the spirit-severing stage, like the big snake with the blood of the azure dragon, it was not difficult to catch an ordinary demonic beast at the late stage of the spirit-severing stage. However, Xiao Lingyu had to hide the big snake first. Otherwise, it would probably be scared away before he and the big snake made a move. After passing through the stone wall at the exit and walking through a long tunnel, Xiao Lingyu arrived at the valley. The valley was still so quiet. There was no formation set to trap and kill him, which made Xiao Lingyu a little relieved. His cultivation had not been completed yet, so he was really worried that he would be found by the enemy. Wait until I finish my cultivation this time and reach the nascent soul stage. Xiao Lingyu took out the star chaser and jumped into it. He filled some spirit stones into its energy slot and let it slowly rise into the air. He didn't open his spiritual energy shield because he wouldn't be able to advance at full speed. The situation last time was a bit special. If he opened the shield, he would be attacked by the enemy's formation. He could only choose not to open the shield and directly accelerate forward, which almost caused him to lose his life. This was already the depths of the desolate ancient forest. There were countless demonic beasts at the spirit-severing stage, and the combination stage. When Shaolin Yu left here last time, he encountered a lot of demonic beasts. However, at that time, there was still the aura left by Jiang Lan Yue in his body, so those demonic beasts did not dare to attack him. When he encountered the big snake, it was when the aura left by Jiang Lan Yue disappeared. This time was different. He flew casually and leisurely. The spiritual energy fluctuations released by the chasing star would naturally attract the attention of the demonic beasts here. He did not have to deliberately look for them. Many demonic beasts would take the initiative to come to him. Of course, he did not dare to be too careless. His expression was relaxed, but he was very cautious. Once he encountered a combination stage demonic beast, he would immediately speed up the chasing star. If the chasing star flew at full speed, even a crossing calamity stage expert would not be able to catch up. It only took Shaolin Yu 3 days to meet an ideal target. At this time, he came to the side of a small lake and was stopped by a flood dragon at the spirit severing stage. The flood dragon was not a real dragon. A real dragon had the bloodline of a divine beast. However, the flood dragon needed to evolve step by step to become a real dragon. Only then could it go from a spiritual beast to an immortal beast and then to a divine beast. To be able to make such progress, it meant that the flood dragon also had the bloodline of a real dragon. The flood dragon was hundreds of feet long, and its scales were shining with a blue light. It rose from the lake and bared its fangs and brandished its claws. A tyrannical aura, mixed with a bit of dragon power, swept over like a rolling wave. This small lake was the flood dragon's territory. In the face of Shaolin Yu, a cultivator who brazenly swaggered into its territory, the flood dragon was very angry. First, it released its aura to warn Shaolin Yu, but Shaolin Yu did not immediately cover his head and run away. The flood dragon felt that its dignity had been provoked, so it let out an earth-shaking dragon roar. Then, it turned into a ray of blue light and pounced on the chasing star. Buzz! The chasing star opened its shield and dodged to the side, causing the flood dragon to miss. These days, Shaolin Yu had gradually become familiar with the control of the chasing star. He could do some short-distance dodging. After leading the flood dragon around the small lake a few times, Shaolin Yu rode the chasing star and escaped far away. Although the flood dragon was not slow, it could not catch up with a supreme-grade flying magic treasure. After chasing for a while, it had no choice but to give up and return to the small lake. However, not long after, that hateful human cultivator who fled without a fight actually rode a flying magic treasure into its territory again. The flood dragon was even more furious, but it could only be led by the nose. After chasing for a while, it could only watch as the human escaped unscathed. Just like that, for a whole 10 days, that hateful human cultivator did not completely leave. He kept harassing its territory, but it could not do anything to him. This made the flood dragon extremely angry, and its temper became more and more violent. There were a few times when it could not catch up with the human cultivator, and it was so angry that it destroyed the small mountains on the way. Although the flood dragon was completely enraged, it was also about to lose its rationality. Its anger could not be contained, and when it saw that hateful human cultivator again, it directly activated its special ability. Demonic beasts with the bloodline of the true dragon all had very powerful innate divine abilities, or rather, divine abilities unique to the dragon clan. This kind of divine ability was often their life-saving trump card, and they would not use it casually. The reason why Shaolin Yu tortured the flood dragon was to make it activate its special ability in advance, and not suddenly in the middle of a fierce battle. In the sky, the flood dragon's body shone with blue light, and the lake below it roared and rolled. Roar! The flood dragon let out an even louder dragon roar, and suddenly the lake water rose from the lake, forming a vast ocean in midair. Endless water vapor spread in all directions. Shaolin Yu could feel that the spiritual energy between heaven and earth seemed to be occupied and mobilized by the lake water. It gathered together, forming waves and surging toward the location of the chasing star. This was the Flood Dragon's special ability. Water Domain. Xiaoling Yu did not release the big snake, because even if she released the big snake, it would be the same. Under the special ability of the Flood Dragon, which was also in the late stage of the spirit severing stage, the big snake would not be able to resist and would very likely be killed by the other party. None of the demonic beasts that possessed the bloodline of the true dragon were simple. Xiaoling Yu did not do anything else. She just stared at the supreme grade spirit stones that were constantly being consumed and replenished them from time to time. Chapter 40. Although Star Chaser's defense could not be compared to a true supreme-grade defensive spiritual weapon, it was definitely much stronger than a superior-grade spiritual weapon. Furthermore, it did not have any requirements for its owner's cultivation level. As long as there were enough supreme-grade spirit stones, its defense could be maximized and maintained for a long time. After all, the Flood Dragon was not a real dragon, nor was it at the body integration stage. Its water domain was a water-type attack, so its attack power could not be compared to metal-type or fire-type attacks. Most importantly, this innate ability could not be maintained for too long. It was constantly and rapidly consuming the Flood Dragon's energy. Star Chaser, naturally, could not continue to hold on. Its defense could not be linked together because its energy storage could not hold too many supreme-grade spirit stones at once. When it exchanged supreme-grade spirit stones, its defensive barrier would be broken. When Star Chaser's defensive barrier was broken, Xiaoling Yu released the python that had been waiting for a long time. What the python wanted to do was to buy some time for Xiaoling Yu to replenish its supreme-grade spirit stones. This was not a difficult task for the python, which was also at the late stage of the spirit severing stage and had an ancient bloodline. After the python came out, it did not dare to be negligent and directly spat out its dragon infant. The dragon infant's aura and dragon essence could avoid some of the power of the dragon spells. It used its body to protect Star Chaser and released a circle of energy to block the water domain's attack. After Xiaoling Yu finished replenishing its supreme-grade spirit stones, the python withdrew its dragon infant and turned into a small snake to hide in Star Chaser's protective barrier. However, after activating its innate ability, the Flood Dragon could not move at will, nor could it use any other spells. It could only watch the python and feel itself getting weaker and weaker. As long as it was a demonic beast, once it activated its innate ability, it would cause considerable damage to itself. At the very least, it would cause itself to fall into a period of weakness. In other words, if the Flood Dragon could not use the water domain to kill Xiaoling Yu, then there was only one way left for it, and that was to let Xiaoling Yu deal with it. After activating its innate ability, the Flood Dragon would definitely not be a match for the python. The Flood Dragon had already activated its innate ability, so even if it regretted, it was too late. It did not dare to forcefully stop its innate ability unless it wanted to die immediately. The water only lasted for the time it took to brew a cup of tea before it collapsed. The lake water that was floating in the air also fell down with a crash. Even the water mist was blown away by the strong wind. The Flood Dragon's body was floating in the air as if it was drunk. Not long after, the Flood Dragon could no longer stabilize its body and fell into the remaining half of the lake with a splash. It floated weakly on the surface of the lake. However, just as Xiaoling Yu ordered the serpent to capture the Flood Dragon alive, the Flood Dragon suddenly soared into the sky as if it had regained its vitality. It let out an extremely loud dragon roar that shook the sky. This was not an angry roar, but a sorrowful cry of despair. After this dragon roar, the Flood Dragon's body weakly fell back into the water. After activating its innate ability, it did not even have the ability to self-destruct. This was one of the reasons why Xiaoling Yu had forced it to activate its innate ability in advance. If it self-destructed, all of Xiaoling Yu's efforts would have been in vain. Roar. Xiaoling Yu originally thought that the Flood Dragon's last cry meant that he had achieved his goal. However, he did not expect that just as the serpent pounced forward and was about to capture the flood dragon alive, another dragon roar could be heard. This dragon roar did not come from the flood dragon floating in the lake, but from another demon beast. That demonic beast was clearly not far from here. Furthermore, it was definitely rushing over at full speed. Shaolin Yu could already feel a terrifying pressure approaching from afar. Before that aura even got close, it had already made Shaolin Yu's soul tremble and made the serpent tremble. It was obvious that the demon beast was definitely much stronger than the flood dragon. Oh no, that's not a cry of despair, but a cry for help. Shaolin Yu suddenly realized and said anxiously to the serpent, "Hurry up." The flood dragon was very weak and could not stop the serpent's actions at all. Its body was entangled by the serpent. The serpent dragged the flood dragon's body and flew back, then wrapped its tail around Chui Xing. Shaolin Yu didn't dare to be negligent. He immediately replenished Star Chaser's top-grade spirit stones. Then, he made a gesture to activate Star Chaser's defensive shield. Then, he let Star Chaser fly at full speed. Just as Chui Xing rushed into the sky, a flood dragon more than 10,000 feet long came across the sky with a mighty dragon's aura. That flood dragon was also covered with solid blue scales, but looked more like a real dragon. The dragon's aura on its body was much more obvious than that of the flood dragon at the spirit-severing stage. Could it be the flood dragon's elder? Shaolin Yu said with a headache. He never expected that the elder would come after he beat the younger one. Fortunately, Zhui Xing had already begun to speed up, and his speed was extremely fast. The dragon with unfathomable cultivation kept roaring angrily as it chased after Zhui Xing, but it couldn't really get close. The blue ice arrows it spat out couldn't hit Zhui Xing either. Damn human brat. If you don't let go of my child, I will exterminate your entire family. What surprised Shaolin Yu was that the flood dragon that chased after him and refused to give up could actually speak human language. Shaolin Yu did not care about such meaningless threats and continued to speed up the chasing star. At this time, the flood dragon at the spirit-severing stage was fighting with the big snake. It kept scratching the big snake with its claws and at the same time opened its mouth to bite the big snake. The big snake was not a kind creature. This flood dragon was its captive. Since it dared to attack it, it would naturally retaliate. Relying on the fact that it was in a much better state than the flood dragon, the snake would not be at a disadvantage. It circulated its power throughout its body and tightly restrained the flood dragon, making it unable to move. Then it fiercely bit the flood dragon's tail. Its sharp teeth penetrated the flood dragon's body. It suddenly swung its head, and the flood dragon's tail was bitten off. The big snake chewed the flood dragon's tail with all its might. The flood dragon's meat was definitely the most delicious food in the world to it. If it swallowed the flood dragon's body and absorbed all the dragon essence in it, the big snake estimated that it would be even closer to reaching the body integration stage. The flood dragon that was more than 10,000 feet long chased behind for a long time, but it was finally shaken off by Chui Xing. Even if it was a crossing calamity stage monster, if it was not a bird that specialized in speed and had the bloodline of a divine beast, it would be impossible to catch up with Chui Xing. The speed that a top-grade flying magic weapon could reach, only a master of the Deshang stage could use constant teleportation to catch up. Teleportation, in the cultivation world, was the exclusive magical ability of a master of the Deshang stage. Few cultivators could launch teleportation before the Deshang stage. Of course, few did not mean that there were no exceptions. Without using teleportation to chase, Shaolin Yu was enough to be sure that the flood dragon behind him was not at the Deshang stage. However, seeing that the flood dragon was chasing after him, Shaolin Yu also felt a little kind-hearted. He had no enmity with the flood dragon, but it was a little cruel to take its life for cultivation. Although this kind of thing was very common in the cultivation world, and countless cultivators were hunting demonic beasts, and many demonic beasts were also slaughtering human cultivators, Shaolin Yu did not have a heart of stone. He was not an unscrupulous person who would do anything for cultivation. He still felt that he should not kill at will. Of course, he did not dare to stop and let go of the flood dragon. Once he stopped, he would be caught up. The flood dragon that was most likely to be at the crossing calamity stage would not let him go because of his kindness. After arriving at the valley, Xiaoling Yu stopped chasing Chui Xing. At the entrance of the tunnel, he was depressed to find that the flood dragon was dying, and most of the flood dragon's body had been swallowed by the big snake. "You foodie!" Xiaoling Yu knocked on the big snake's head. But at this point, he had no reason to be kind. Since he had already become an evil person, it was better to be thorough. In a place like the cultivation world, if you did not kill, others would kill you, and you were very likely to be killed. Whether they were killed or killed, he believed that many people would not hesitate to choose to kill. This was not kindness or malice, but helplessness. When the big snake dragged the flood dragon's body along the narrow tunnel to the entrance of the ancient god's cave mansion, the flood dragon finally died because of its serious injuries, and its body was too weak. Xiaoling Yu could only sigh helplessly. Then, without wasting any resources, he let the serpent swallow the remaining half of the flood dragon's body before its energy was depleted. Naturally, he would not give up on the serpent's nascent soul. With the flood dragon's flesh and blood essence and the flood dragon's nascent soul, the big snake would definitely be promoted to the form synthesis stage in a very short time. Xiaoling Yu also made some preparations for the big snake's promotion. Some of the materials he bought were needed by the big snake. At this time, he gave all of them to the big snake and then took the big snake into the ancient god's cave mansion. The flood dragon's body and nascent soul were not the most valuable treasures it had. The most valuable thing was its dragon pearl. Although the flood dragon was not a real dragon, it was much easier for it to transform into a dragon than the big snake. The reason was that the flood dragon had a dragon pearl, but the big snake did not. There were only two kinds of energy contained in the dragon pearl. One was a part of the flood dragon's dragon essence, and the other was most of its dragon soul. What Xiaoling Yu valued and needed was the dragon soul in the dragon pearl. He had never thought of hunting a flood dragon before. As long as it was a demonic beast at the late stage of the spirit severing stage, it would be fine. He just happened to meet this very confident and violent flood dragon. Xiaoling Yu first meditated carefully for 2 days. When the big snake almost digested the flood dragon's body and flesh, he let the big snake absorb the dragon essence in the dragon pearl, leaving him with only the dragon soul in the dragon pearl. The dragon soul in the dragon pearl was actually a great tonic for the big snake. Unfortunately, the big snake did not dare to expect that its master needed it. After absorbing the dragon essence in the dragon pearl, the big snake directly entered a state of cultivation. It was afraid that it would not wake up in a short time. With the support of so many dragon essences, it would naturally enter the form synthesis stage. Chapter 41. The dragon soul was very domineering to begin with. In addition, the flood dragon was at the late stage of the spirit severing stage. In terms of cultivation level, it was much higher than Xiaoling Yu. Its dragon soul was not something that Xiaoling Yu could withstand. Even if Xiaoling Yu had the emerald green pearl to protect his soul, if he did not have the corresponding cultivation technique and sufficient preparation, he would not be able to successfully use the dragon soul to transform his soul. Before using the cultivation technique, Xiaoling Yu kept shaking the emerald green pearl, causing it to release waves of cool energy to nourish and protect his soul. After a while, Xiaoling Yu pressed his palm on the dragon pearl. His spiritual sense guided the dragon soul that was overflowing from the dragon pearl into his palm and slowly moved along his meridians to his sea of consciousness. A cultivator's soul was in the sea of consciousness. For any cultivator, there were two very important places. One was the dantian, and the other was the sea of consciousness. The dantian was the cultivator's energy carrier, and the sea of consciousness was the cultivator's soul. If either of these places lost control or suffered a heavy blow, it would be fatal to the cultivator. This was especially so for the cultivator's sea of consciousness. It was not easy to allow other energy to enter and it was also very taboo for others to pry into it. The cultivator himself did not dare to do anything to the soul in the sea of consciousness because the soul was relatively fragile. The slightest carelessness would cause the cultivator's soul to dissipate. The cultivation technique for the transformation of body and soul was very abnormal. Previously, Shaolin Yu had succeeded in the transformation of his body, which made him very confident in this cultivation technique. It also made him very confident that his soul would also be able to transform successfully. After the dragon's soul entered the sea of consciousness, it did not need Shaolin Yu's spiritual sense to guide it. It directly pounced on Shaolin Yu's soul. Shaolin Yu's soul was currently in a hazy fog state. When he cultivated to a certain level, the fog state would turn into a liquid state, and then the liquid state would condense into a solid state again. When the soul was truly strong and tenacious, it would be in a solid state and could withstand attacks within a certain range. At this moment, the dragon soul was like a stream of air. After pouncing on Shaolin Yu's soul, it began to tear, attack, and erode Shaolin Yu's soul, stirring up his fog-like soul. Shaolin Yu immediately let out a blood-curdling scream. The pain that came from the depths of his soul was many times more intense than the pain of his body's transformation. The emerald green pearl first released a cool energy to maintain Shaolin Yu's soul. Then it automatically moved to the soul in his sea of consciousness. And of Shao. Under the guidance of Shaolin Yu's spiritual sense, the dragon's soul and his own soul were divided into strands and entangled in his sea of consciousness, corroding and infiltrating each other. As for the emerald green bead, it constantly released waves of cool energy to help Shaolin Yu's soul take the initiative. Even with the help of the emerald green pearl, Shaolin Yu could ensure that his soul's transformation would proceed smoothly. However, his soul had been split into dozens of parts, and each part was suffering and struggling. This made him extremely fearful of this kind of cultivation. According to the principle of the transformation of the body and soul, it was best to only advance by one stage per transformation. However, Shaolin Yu was only in the out-of-body stage, but he was going to directly transform to the later stage of the spirit-severing stage. He even borrowed the dragon soul of the later stage of the spirit-severing stage. This was too risky. Originally, there was no chance of success. However, Shaolin Yu had the help of the emerald green pearl, which was even better than a supreme-grade spiritual weapon. Everything was not a problem. As long as the attack or pressure on Shaolin Yu's soul did not exceed the range of the emerald green pearl's control, it would be impossible for his soul to be destroyed. It was also because of this premise that he dared to make such a huge improvement. This kind of cultivation lasted for a full 4 hours. Then, all the dragon souls in the pearl entered Shaolin Yu's sea of consciousness and intertwined with his soul. Another 3 days passed. Shaolin Yu's soul, which had been split into dozens of parts, slowly gathered together again. However, its volume had increased by more than 100 times. It also seemed more solid and vigorous. However, the transformation of his soul was not complete. It was the most dangerous and difficult time. Boom! All of a sudden, the cloud of souls that had gathered together exploded with a loud bang, and a large part of the cloud of souls suddenly exploded. Puff! Shaolin Yu's body leaned forward, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. His entire body was trembling and swaying. The most intense pain came from the depths of his soul. Shaolin Yu's consciousness was like a candle in the wind that could be extinguished at any time. It was also at this moment that the emerald green pearl shook violently. A cool energy with an emerald green color flowed out of the pearl and formed a circle of light that surrounded Shaolin Yu's soul cloud. The soul cloud that had exploded and was already showing signs of collapsing was tightly surrounded by the emerald green energy and could not escape at all. Bang! 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 Within the emerald green energy circle, Shaolin Yu's soul cloud exploded continuously. His body trembled even more violently, and he spat out mouthfuls of blood. This kind of explosion was the most important step that the soul transformation technique had to go through. If the cultivator could not withstand it, his soul would be destroyed directly. Shaolin Yu's transformation this time was too big, so the explosion was very violent. If he had only transformed one stage, it would be relatively safer. The emerald green pearl did not let Shaolin Yu down. It was very firm in supporting him. While the cool energy protected his soul from collapsing, it also accelerated the process of the transformation, nourishing and strengthening his soul. After another cup of tea's time, although Shaolin Yu was bleeding from his 7 orifices and his face was pale, he still persevered to the end. The transformation of his soul had completely ended, and he had succeeded. His soul was still in the form of a cloud, but it was very dense and firmly gathered together. It was also constantly floating like water waves. The late stage of the spirit-severing stage. Shaolin Yu's soul realm had reached the late stage of the spirit-severing stage, which was also close to the middle stage of the chaotic nascent soul stage. Such a soul realm was enough for Shaolin Yu to advance to the early stage of the chaotic nascent soul stage. After the storm, there would be a rainbow. After enduring unparalleled pain, there would naturally be rich rewards. In addition, Shaolin Yu's physical body had already transformed and advanced to the chaotic nascent soul stage. He had made very sufficient preparations. Shaolin Yu came this time to break through to the chaotic nascent soul stage. Now is the time to do it seriously. However, he was not in a hurry. Instead, he carefully adjusted his breathing for a period of time. Then, he casually moved around in the ancient god's cave for 2 days. When he felt that everything was fine, he sat down again with his legs crossed. The snake was still in the state of cultivation, and it was also at the critical moment of breaking through to the form synthesis stage. When he was in the best state and his mind was empty, Shaolin Yu's mind moved and 2 bottles of pills appeared in front of him. The effect of these 2 bottles of pills was similar to the Meridian Nourishing Pill and the Meridian Protection Pill. However, the medicinal strength was stronger and the effect was greater. They were both of the quality of middle-grade pills. After taking the 2 pills, a jade box appeared in front of Shaolin Yu. When he opened it, a fruit in the shape of a baby shining with red and blue light slowly floated in front of him. The double-colored nascent soul fruit was a necessary ingredient for Shaolin Yu to break through to the chaotic nascent soul stage. It was also one of the reasons why he dared to break through to the chaotic nascent soul stage. Now is not the time to use the double-colored nascent soul fruit. Shaolin Yu just checked it. When he saw that it was not the slightest bit abnormal, he was slightly relieved. After taking a deep breath, Shaolin Yu waved his hand and took out countless supreme-grade spirit stones. He let them revolve around him, and then silently operated his cultivation method. The chaotic nascent soul was actually similar to the nascent soul of a cultivator. The principle and process of condensing the nascent soul was not much different. Both of them first absorbed energy and broke the core to form the nascent soul. However, Shaolin Yu first needed to convert the spiritual power into chaotic energy. Shaolin Yu closed his eyes, but his fingers were constantly moving. The supreme-grade spirit stones around him began to overflow with spiritual power and permeate into his body. The spiritual power rushed along his tendons and rushed to his dantian. Then, it was led to rotate by the chaotic essence released by the chaotic golden core. With the chaotic golden core as the center, it formed an energy vortex. The emerald green pearl had already returned from the sea of consciousness to his dantian. It guarded beside the chaotic golden core. From time to time, it trembled and released a cool energy that swept through Shaolin Yu's body. A part of it sank into the vortex. After the transformation of his physical body, it was already very strong. With the help of the pills and the emerald green pearl, it was enough to withstand the impact of the mighty spiritual power. Xiaoling Yu's soul realm had also reached the late stage of the spirit-severing stage. It was easier for him to control the circulation of energy in his body. This process of absorbing spiritual power and transforming it into chaotic energy lasted for a full 3 days. Xiaoling Yu's tendons and meridians felt a little pain. He was actually only one step away from breaking through to the chaotic nascent soul stage. Boom! Finally, there was an explosion in Xiaoling Yu's dantian. The chaotic golden elixir, which had expanded to the size of a rubber ball, exploded along with the whirlpool around it. Xiaoling Yu's body suddenly shook as a wave of domineering and dense chaotic energy swept through the entire ancient god's cave dwelling. Xiaoling Yu's body was shining with a gray light. At this moment, he opened his eyes. He opened the jade box and took out the double-colored nascent soul fruit. Then, he quickly and carefully chewed it. The double-colored nascent soul fruit was more than 1,000 years old. The energy it contained was also quite terrifying. Its flesh turned into liquid energy in Xiaoling Yu's mouth and rushed to Xiaoling Yu's dantian. The blue energy was very cold, but the red energy was very hot. These two types of energy were very harmonious when they gathered in the double-colored nascent soul fruit. However, they clashed with each other in Xiaoling Yu's tendons and meridians, causing Xiaoling Yu's body to swell. His body was sometimes cold, and sometimes it was like he was bathed in fire. However, the emerald green pearl once again played a strong role in protecting its owner's physical body. Waves of emerald green energy were constantly released, ensuring that Xiaoling Yu's body would not suffer too much damage. The blue and red energy of the double-colored nascent soul fruit finally gathered in his dantian. However, it swept up the chaotic energy that had exploded from the chaotic golden core in his dantian and intertwined together to slowly form a new double-colored nascent soul fruit. Chapter 42. Xiaoling Yu's body shone with blue and red light. A strong aura surged out of his body, but his expression was very calm. The chaotic nascent soul had begun to take shape. His cultivation had also ended. He had done what he could, and the rest was up to his cultivation method. He had no power to control it anymore. The emerald green bead, on the other hand, kept releasing a cool emerald green energy into the chaotic nascent soul that was gradually becoming solid. Originally, the chaotic nascent soul was hot and cold. Xiaoling Yu had to endure the pain and try his luck. However, with the help of the emerald green bead, there was no danger even if there were two opposite types of energy entangling with each other. The process of forming the chaotic nascent soul took a full 20 hours before it finally came to an end. A fist-sized chaotic nascent soul that was shining with blue and red light floated in Xiaoling Yu's dantian with its legs crossed and its hands clasped together. Its eyes were closed. This nascent soul was more like a baby than the dual-colored nascent soul fruit. This was because it had expressions and could move. It could even speak and cultivate after the spiritual awakening. That's right. The chaotic nascent soul was the same as the nascent soul of an ordinary cultivator. After the body was formed, it still needed to be spiritual awakened. The so-called spiritual awakening was when the cultivator used his own spiritual consciousness to make the nascent soul have consciousness. In other words, the cultivator had to give a part of his soul to the nascent soul so that it would not only be a carrier of energy, but also have real-life instincts. Xiaoling Yu first looked at the chaotic nascent soul carefully. He felt that it looked more and more like himself. He was very surprised and happy. He could also feel the rich energy contained in this chaotic nascent soul. After observing for a while, he found that this chaotic nascent soul was very solid and there was no danger of it collapsing. Xiaoling Yu then separated a strand of soul energy and let it sink into the chaotic nascent soul's forehead. That strand of soul energy contained a part of Xiaoling Yu's memories and consciousness. It allowed the chaotic nascent soul to be closely connected to his mind. At the same time, it could also cultivate automatically and help him control the energy in his body. After another hour, the chaotic nascent soul slowly opened its eyes. However, there were no fluctuations in its emotions. After scanning his dantian, it waved its hand and grabbed the emerald green bead. There were no other movements. Ooh! Only then did Xiao Lingyu let out a long sigh of relief, because the cultivation this time was completely over. Although the process was a bit unbearable to look back on, the results were very gratifying. The early stage of the chaotic nascent soul stage was equivalent to a spirit-severing stage cultivator. Whether it was the quality of the chaotic nascent soul or the quality of the chaotic energy, it was far superior to the nascent soul and spirit force of a spirit-severing stage cultivator. In addition, Xiao Lingyu was at the late stage of the spirit-severing stage. It could be said that he was invincible in the spirit-severing stage. Cultivators not only relied on their skills and cultivation base to display their strength, but also the grade of their cultivation techniques and the quality of their magic treasures. In these two aspects, Xiao Lingyu would definitely not lose to others. The 9 Revolutions Chaos Formula was a supreme cultivation technique, and Xiao Lingyu currently had 3 supreme-grade spirit tools. Whether it was cultivation techniques or magic treasures, he was far ahead of other spirit-severing stage cultivators. With these advantages, he could even challenge a body integration stage cultivator. Xiao Lingyu was naturally very satisfied with this cultivation. After he got used to it for a while, he suddenly shouted and opened his palm. A ball of blue and red flames rose. Chaotic True Fire. The Chaotic True Fire had 2 attributes, cold and hot. Ordinary cultivators could release nascent soul True Fire after condensing their nascent soul. However, Xiao Lingyu could release Chaotic True Fire when he was in the chaotic nascent soul stage. The power of the chaotic true fire was naturally stronger than the nascent soul true fire of cultivators. With a thought, a palm-sized tied metal rock flew out from his storage bracelet. Then, Xiao Lingyu placed it into the chaotic true fire. In just a few moments, the tied metal rock began to melt. In less than 100 breaths, it had completely melted into a ball of liquid. The tied metal rock was a high-grade material for refining tools. Since it could be easily melted, Xiao Lingyu had the prerequisites to refine high-grade spirit tools or spirit pills in the future. Xiao Lingyu directly threw away the liquid tied metal rock. Then he took out a supreme-grade material for refining tools, heavenly gung metal, and threw it into the chaotic true fire. However, after an hour, the heavenly gung metal showed signs of melting. Moreover, the speed was very slow. Xiao Lingyu estimated that if he wanted to completely melt the heavenly gung metal, it would take at least half a year. After putting away the heavenly gung metal, Xiao Lingyu quietly pondered for a while. Then, his hands began to move in front of his chest. While Xiao Lingyu was forming seals, the chaotic nascent soul in his dantian was also doing the exact same thing. It also flipped its 2 small pink hands, its 10 fingers constantly moving in a mysterious pattern. As the 10 fingers moved rapidly, blue and red lines intertwined at the tip of Xiao Lingyu's fingers. Gradually, they formed a circle of yin-yang fish made of blue and red energy. However, after 3 days of practice, Xiao Lingyu still did not succeed in forming the yin-yang fish. This chaotic seal is really difficult to practice. I've practiced it thousands of times, but I haven't succeeded even once. Moreover, this is the simplest type. After muttering to himself, Xiao Lingyu saw that the snake's cultivation was still not finished. He began to immerse himself in practicing the chaotic seal. The chaotic seal was imparted to him by Xiao Lingyu's master. It was said to be an extremely advanced supplementary technique that could only be used by cultivators who cultivated chaotic energy. Xiao Lingyu was only practicing one type of the chaotic seal. Although it was said to be the simplest type, once he mastered it, it was enough to increase Xiao Lingyu's chaotic energy attacks by tenfold. However, after more than half a month, Xiao Lingyu did not know how many times he had practiced it, but he still could not make a breakthrough. However, he also discovered the crux of the problem. Xiao Lingyu's chaotic energy originally did not have any attributes, nor did it have any obvious colors. It was just a blur. However, now, it had two completely different attributes, cold and hot. Moreover, it had a blue and red color. The problem lay in the two attributes of cold and heat. Although they could coexist harmoniously, there would be conflicts when forming the seal. Xiao Lingyu had to control the two attributes very carefully and combine them in a reasonable way to complete the primal chaos seal. To break through to the chaotic nascent soul stage, one needed a double-colored spiritual nascent fruit. The double-colored spiritual nascent fruit must also have two attributes. However, it did not necessarily have to be cold or hot. It could also be firewood, metal wood, water wood, metal water, etc. However, Xiao Lingyu encountered the double-colored spiritual nascent fruit. He had no choice, as these two attributes were causing him trouble. Master said that I can start practicing the chaotic seal when I reach the second transformation chaotic nascent soul stage. As long as I'm not too stupid, I can quickly master one attribute. However, I haven't succeeded after practicing for so long. It seems that there's a problem with the double-colored spiritual nascent fruit that I chose. If I want to practice the simplest chaotic seal, it will be twice as difficult as under normal circumstances. Xiao Lingyu concluded gloomily and then continued practicing. Soon after, the serpent woke up from its cultivation state. It had successfully advanced to the early stage of the combination realm. What was even more gratifying was that a dragon pearl had appeared in the serpent's head. Although this dragon pearl was only the size of a walnut and did not contain much dragon soul and dragon essence, it was still a key step for the serpent to evolve into a true dragon. Moreover, with the dragon pearl, the serpent would have a kind of innate divine ability of a true dragon. It would be able to stimulate the Azure Dragon bloodline in its body to a greater extent and obtain the Azure Dragon bloodline's combat skill inheritance. This would undoubtedly increase its overall strength to a certain extent. Although the serpent's strength had improved greatly, it was still very obedient after seeing Xiao Lingyu. It used its head to nudge Xiao Lingyu's arm with a flattering look. When you pass the heavenly tribulation and reach the great vehicle stage, you'll be able to grow dragon horns and dragon claws and become a flood dragon. As long as you encounter some opportunities in the immortal world, it's not impossible to become a real devourer of heaven. Follow me well, and your future will be bright. Perhaps it was because his own strength had improved greatly. Xiao Lingyu appeared very confident. He patted the serpent's head and said, since the master and servant's cultivation had ended, there was no point in staying in the ancient god's cave abode any longer. Xiao Lingyu had the intention to leave. He said to the serpent, get used to it and rest for 2 days. After that, we'll leave this place. The serpent had just advanced. If he did not give it some time to adapt, Xiao Lingyu would not easily leave this absolutely safe place. After all, there was the possibility of encountering powerful demon beasts or enemies outside. After the serpent went to rest, Xiao Lingyu naturally continued to study the primal chaos seal. Just as the 2 days were about to pass, Xiao Lingyu finally succeeded. After his 10 fingers moved rapidly, a blue and red yin-yang fish appeared in front of his chest. Huh, the heavens reward those who persevere. Xiao Lingyu laughed excitedly, then waved his hand and sent the yin-yang fish out. Boom! A loud explosion reverberated in the ancient god's cave abode. However, the stone walls here could not be destroyed even by Jiang Lanyue's divine weapon. Naturally, Xiao Lingyu's primal chaos seal would not be damaged at all. However, the serpent was very shocked at this moment. It looked at Xiao Lingyu in a daze with a face full of envy and admiration. The power that the primal chaos seal had unleashed was so powerful that even a powerhouse in the form synthesis stage like it felt a little fearful. The power is not bad, but I'm not proficient enough. I need at least 10 seconds to prepare for each activation. Furthermore, it consumes 1/5 of my strength. Xiao Lingyu was not arrogant. Instead, he recognized his own shortcomings. The serpent had just finished its cultivation and did not want to return to the spirit beast pouch. It turned into a small snake and coiled around Xiao Lingyu's arm. It followed Xiao Lingyu through the stone wall at the entrance, through a long and dark tunnel, and into the valley. Just as Xiao Lingyu activated star chasing and headed in the direction of Luoyu City, a flood dragon that was more than 10,000 feet long chased after him. Xiao Lingyu guessed that this flood dragon had been using its divine sense to conduct a large-scale search nearby. It had discovered him as soon as he came out. However, it could not teleport over, which gave Xiao Lingyu time to activate star chasing. Chapter 43. Luoyu City was still the same as before. As long as a feather flew past, it would definitely fall from the sky. Xiao Lingyu came to Luoyu City again for no other reason than to inquire about the news about Earth. Other than cultivating and protecting himself in the cultivation world, there was something more important that he needed to do. That was, he needed his close friend and girlfriend, Gu Xiaomin. If he wanted to inquire about something, he naturally had to go to a place with a lot of people. On the flying feather continent, the places with the most people were in cities. Moreover, the people in the cities came from all directions. Even if the information they could provide was not in-depth enough, the coverage was still wide enough. Xiao Lingyu also did not know how to inquire about Earth. Therefore, he used the most primitive method. When he saw cultivators who seemed friendly, he would go up and ask them a few questions. He was not angry when they ignored or annoyed him. Instead, he kept smiling. After all, he was the one who was asking for help. The news of his reappearance in Luoyu City naturally spread out not long after. Those who wanted to capture him also rushed to Luoyu City. Xiao Lingyu was already on guard because he found out that he had actually become a famous person on the flying feather continent. Even though his fame was not very high, he could often hear his name mentioned in the taverns and tea houses in Luoyu City. His actions in the treasure vault in the falling rock desert had been spread out in many different versions. However, all the versions said that he had obtained an immortal weapon and that he was just a lucky junior who was only at the Gold Core realm. This was only one of the reasons. Everyone already knew that he was being hunted by the Void Inquiry Stage Immortal Sect. The scariest thing was not these. The Void Inquiry Stage Immortal Sect and the cultivators who had seen his appearance in the treasure vault in the falling rock desert had all imitated his image. His appearance and characteristics were remembered by many cultivators on the flying feather continent. After all, everyone thought that he had obtained an immortal weapon and was not strong enough. Many cultivators had the intention to kill him and snatch his treasures. Besides, not only could they obtain the immortal weapon after killing him, they could also go to the Void Inquiry Stage Immortal Sect to receive a reward. It was a wonderful thing to kill two birds with one stone. After being on guard, Xiao Lingyu found a secluded place and adjusted his appearance and temperament. For him who had reached the chaotic nascent soul realm, this was a very easy thing to do. After changing her appearance, Xiao Lingyu once again appeared on the streets of Luoyu City and continued to inquire about Earth. His strength had greatly improved since the last time he came, which caused the other party to misunderstand him. Unfortunately, his method, which was almost like looking for a needle in a haystack, did not have the slightest effect. Regardless of whether there was someone in Luoyu City who knew the news about Earth, even if they knew, it would be difficult for him to meet that person. Even if he was lucky enough to meet that person might not necessarily tell him the truth. Xiao Lingyu realized once again that a single person's power was limited. If he had tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of subordinates, things would be much simpler if he let them search everywhere. Xiao Lingyu was a little worried that she had not been able to obtain any information. Was she the only one who had been moved to the Feiyu continent, while the rest of the people on Earth had gone to other places? If everyone was on a different continent, or if the others didn't even go to the cultivation world but went to other planets with life, how was he going to find them? In the vast universe and the infinite starry sky, even if he was at the peak of the cultivation world, it was impossible for him to carefully search every corner of this world. Moreover, it had been so long. God knew if his relatives and friends, as well as Gu Xiaomin, had already met with misfortune. Just as Xiao Lingyu was looking for targets on the streets, to continue asking about Earth for 2 more days with a worried frown, his shoulder suddenly sank. Someone had gently patted him. Xiaoling Yu turned around and saw a familiar face, and this face was very beautiful. It was a woman, the woman from the Cloud Gathering House whom Xiaoling Yu had met when he came to Liu City last time. She was also the one who made the decision to let the Cloud Gathering House take away old demon Wu's demonic armor and demonic sword. "Miss, are you looking for me?" Xiaoling Yu pretended to be confused and asked. He had changed his appearance, and his cultivation had greatly improved. He did not believe that this woman could still recognize him. "Of course I'm looking for you, but this is not the place to talk. Can you come with me to the Cloud Gathering House to serve tea?" The woman smiled and nodded. "I'm sorry, I'm very busy. I don't have time to chat with you." Xiaoling Yu shook his head and refused. This woman knew some things about him, so Xiaoling Yu did not want to be too entangled with her. "Brother Xiao, no matter what, we've met once and even negotiated a not small business deal. How can Brother Xiao turn around and treat me like a stranger?" Although the woman's words were a little bitter, she still looked at Xiaoling Yu with a smile. "How did you recognize me?" Xiaoling Yu did not pretend anymore, but frowned and asked. "Brother Xiao, if you want to know, come with me." The woman smiled sweetly, then turned and walked in the direction of the Cloud Gathering House. Xiaoling Yu was a little curious, so he only hesitated for a moment before hurrying after her. He wanted to know how he had exposed his identity. This was very important for his safety in the future. Also, his cultivation level was too low last time, so he could not see through this woman's cultivation level. But this time, he could feel that this woman's cultivation level should be in the middle or late stage of the body integration stage. He was not very afraid of cultivators of this level. Led by the woman, Xiaoling Yu arrived at a room on the 2nd floor of the Cloud Gathering House. "Brother Xiao, please take a seat." "Thank you." Xiaoling Yu took a seat and scanned the room. He found that there were no other special arrangements except for the defensive restriction at the door, so he was more relieved. "Now, can you tell me how you recognize me?" Xiaoling Yu said impatiently. He also knew that this woman had come to find him because she had other things to say. "I didn't recognize you by looking at your appearance, but..." At this point, the woman suddenly paused, smiled slyly, and said, "Let's not talk about this for now. Let's talk about a business first. If the business can be concluded, this can be one of my bargaining chips or one of my rewards." Sure enough, there was something else. However, Xiaoling Yu did not fall for this woman's trick, nor did he want to go along with this woman's plan. He stood up and said, "If you don't make it clear first, I'll leave. As for cooperating with your Cloud Gathering House, I don't have a strong desire in this regard." The woman rolled her eyes at Xiaoling Yu and said helplessly, Okay. I'll talk first. Can you sit down first?" After Xiaoling Yu sat down again, the woman said, "When you were in the small towns outside the Rockfall Desert, have you been inquiring about a mortal planet called Earth?" Xiaoling Yu nodded, but he had already thought of something. "I'm sure Brother Xiao can already guess how I recognized you. You were inquiring about Earth outside the Rockfall Desert, but no one on this planet knows about it. Now that someone is inquiring about it in Liu City, I naturally thought it was you," the woman said. "You know quite a lot of things. I'm guessing there are some servants helping you collect this information, right?" Xiaoling Yu narrowed his eyes and asked curiously, "There are some servants helping. After all, it's a business of all kinds of treasures. Naturally, they have to be more knowledgeable." The woman nodded calmly. "I'm afraid it's not that simple. The fact that you can make things so clear is enough to show that your intelligence network is very tight and meticulous. The area it covers is also very wide. Your functions are not simple." Seeing the woman shake her head and a trace of surprise in her expression, Xiaoling Yu continued, "I have no intention of inquiring about your situation, nor do I want to know what thoughts or intentions you have. Seeing that you answer my question, I'm willing to listen to the business you want to discuss with me." The woman was indeed a little surprised. The origin of the man in front of her was very mysterious. Even Luo Bo could not see through him, and her intelligence network could not find out what this person's background was. However, this person's mind was very meticulous. He was actually able to guess some of her situation with just a few words. The business we want to do is for you to help us overturn the dragon subduing valley. The woman stared at Xiaoling Yu and did not seem to be joking. Hearing this, Xiaoling Yu did not even frown. Instead, he laughed out loud and said, "Miss, you think too highly of me. With my strength, how can I help you overturn a top sect like the dragon subduing valley?" The woman also smiled and said, "I'm not afraid to tell Brother Xiao the truth. We have been preparing for many years to overturn the dragon subduing valley. Right now, the time is ripe, but we lack an opportunity. You can bring us this opportunity." "Oh, I'd like to hear the details," Xiaoling Yu replied calmly. However, in his heart, Xiaoling Yu already understood that this cloud-gathering treasure house was not an honest merchant force, but an organization with great ambitions. Otherwise, they would not have such a powerful intelligence system. At the same time, Xiaoling Yu also became slightly more vigilant. The other party dared to tell him such a secret, firstly because they were very confident in their own strength, and secondly because they were not worried that he would leak the secret. If they weren't worried that he would leak the secret, then there were only two possibilities. Either he would cooperate with them, or they would kill him. Right now, everyone is saying that you have an immortal equipment on you, and many cultivators believe this rumor. Even the dragon subduing valley believes it, and they've already sent out many elite experts to search for you. We plan to use you as bait to lure the elite experts of the dragon subduing valley to surround and kill you. We will lie in ambush at the side and kill them all," the woman said calmly. "Then they will send out even more powerful experts. You will then plan to surround and kill them, forcing the dragon subduing valley to go crazy and continuously send out stronger cultivators. However, I'm guessing that your goal is not to overturn the dragon subduing valley, but to sneak into the dragon subduing valley to do something secret." Xiaoling Yu followed the other party's words and said. Chapter 44. Although I am not very clear about the strength of the dragon subduing valley, as one of the top sects in the Flying Feather Continent, they definitely have a lot of experts in the unification stage. Furthermore, they definitely have old fellows in the Crossing Calamity stage, or even the Deshang stage. Although I don't know what kind of power your treasure house has, but if you have the strength to easily overturn the dragon subduing valley, you don't have to plan for so many years, and you don't have to let it be some bait. In the cultivation world, if there isn't an overwhelming advantage, one party won't easily go to war with another party. Xiaoling Yu paused for a moment. Seeing that the woman was staring at him with curiosity and surprise, he continued, "If you don't have the strength to easily overturn the dragon subduing valley, even if you have a plan, there will be a lot of damage and risk. There is a saying in the cultivation world, in front of absolute strength, any schemes and tricks are useless." Continue. The woman frowned and said indifferently, "This is just my intuition, it is not the truth. Perhaps you and the dragon subduing valley really have an irreconcilable enmity, and even if you don't have full strength, you still want to destroy the dragon subduing valley. But no matter what, I will not cooperate with you, because this is too dangerous for me. Even if you send out powerful experts to protect me, I am not sure if the experts you send out can defeat the true experts of the dragon subduing valley. Cooperating with you is practically gambling with my life. Even if you give me any conditions, I feel that it is not worth it." Xiaoling Yu shook his head and said with disinterest, "With you as bait, we definitely won't be able to lure out the true experts of the dragon subduing valley. Those old fellows are all cultivating in seclusion, either preparing to welcome the arrival of the heavenly tribulation or preparing to ascend to the immortal world. Unless it's absolutely necessary, they won't come out and cause trouble for themselves. When they feel that they have to come out, we don't need you to be bait anymore. You can hide far away," the woman said calmly. Who can guarantee that they won't come out early? Don't Crossing Calamity stage experts drool over immortal equipment? If they could have an immortal artifact to protect their bodies, their chances of surviving the heavenly tribulation would be greatly increased. It could be said that immortal artifacts were the most valuable to tribulation-passing experts. Although the masters of the Great Ascension stage are about to ascend to the immortal world, they will have an immortal artifact when they go to the immortal world, so that they can have a greater protection when they first enter the immortal world. Xiao Lingyu said with a smile. Those old fellows might not believe those unfounded rumors. The woman argued again. Xiao Lingyu shook her head and said, just because they might not believe it doesn't mean that they won't believe it. There's always a chance that something could go wrong. Besides, I think it's very likely that they'll move out in advance. So this matter is too risky for me. The risk is great, but the reward is also great. The woman said non-committally. Actually, I should have left long ago. The more I know, the more disadvantageous it is for me. But if I leave, I don't think you will let me go so easily, right? Xiao Lingyu asked calmly. Of course. The woman was also very frank. If that's the case, I'd like to hear what conditions you plan to use to make me willing to take the risk. Xiao Lingyu curled her lips and still looked very relaxed. We can use our intelligence network to help you find out what you want to find out. I don't dare to say that in other places, but at least in the Feiyu continent, as long as we want to know something, there are very few things that we can't find out. The woman felt a little happy when she heard Xiao Lingyu's words soften. Is that the only condition? Xiao Lingyu asked. 5 million pieces of top-grade spirit stones. The woman continued. You also know that I sold the demonic armor and demonic sword to sell stolen goods. It doesn't mean that I'm lacking in spirit stones. Xiao Lingyu smiled. The woman's eyebrows furrowed again. In fact, she also felt that this mysterious person in front of her shouldn't be lacking in spirit stones or magic treasures. She really couldn't think of a condition that could tempt him to risk his life. Why don't you make your own conditions? The woman directly threw the question to Xiao Lingyu. Instead of blindly guessing, it was better to let the other party think of the conditions. This way, she could also turn passive into active. First of all, introduce yourselves in detail. Only after knowing your background will I be able to cooperate with you and bring up some conditions that both you and I can accept. Secondly, you have to tell me why you want to attack the dragon's subduing valley, or why you're doing this. Xiao Lingyu said very calmly. At this point, he could no longer know too little about the cloud-gathering treasure house, nor could he know too little about this operation. If I tell you all this, you really know too much. If you don't cooperate with us, I'm afraid we really can't let you leave. The woman said with a smile. I already know a lot, so it doesn't matter if I know a little more. You guys are already prepared to make a move on the dragon's subduing valley, so no matter what, you won't let me leak the secret. I'm afraid that there are already experts waiting outside. Xiao Lingyu also replied with a smile. Although he was a little regretful that he had been tricked into coming here, his expression had to be relaxed so that the other party would have some misgivings. Furthermore, Xiao Lingyu did indeed want to use the other party's intelligence network to help him inquire about things. This was also the biggest reason why he had stayed behind to listen. I really can't tell you too much about our origins. After all, you aren't one of us. However, what I can tell you is that the cloud-gathering treasure house is only a branch of our sect on the Flying Feather Continent, and our entire sect covers almost all the continents that have been discovered in the entire cultivation world. In terms of our overall strength, a mere dragon-subduing valley is not worth mentioning at all. However, this operation is just a small move, and there are no other halls or branches to support us. We can only rely on the strength that we have developed in the Flying Feather Continent. The woman briefly introduced. Our forces cover the entire cultivation world. You're not bragging about this, are you? Xiao Lingyu asked curiously. Of course I'm not bragging, and there's no need to brag to you. The woman said with certainty. Oh, Xiao Lingyu nodded meaningfully, then said, Then let's talk about this operation. As you expected, we are not here to destroy the dragon-subduing valley, but to sneak in and steal something. I can't tell you what that thing is, but it must be a treasure for us to go through so much trouble. It's just that that treasure is useless in the hands of the cultivators of the dragon-subduing valley, but it's very useful to us. That treasure has always been in a secret place in the dragon-subduing valley. We planted spies in the dragon-subduing valley and used hundreds of years to find the exact location of that thing. However, the great elder of the dragon-subduing valley is guarding that place, so we haven't had the right time to make a move. The woman still gave a brief introduction. If you want to succeed, you have to let more than half of the experts of the dragon's subduing valley leave, and you also have to let that great elder leave the treasure he is guarding. I think it's very difficult to achieve just by relying on a rumor. Xiaoling Yu said, "It's indeed not easy, but as long as it's possible, we have to try. Of course, just a rumor will definitely not be able to achieve our goal. But if the rumor is true, then there's a lot of hope." The woman said confidently, "The rumor is true?" Xiaoling Yu was clearly very puzzled. "Brother Xiao, don't beat around the bush. You did indeed obtain an immortal equipment from the treasure trove in the Falling Rock Desert. Others might not know, but I'm sure of this. That immortal treasure is in your dantian. It's an emerald green bead." The woman said confidently. This was what Uncle Luo had told her. With Uncle Luo's eyes, the woman believed that there would be no mistake. A magic treasure that was even higher quality than a top-grade spirit weapon, other than an immortal equipment. What else could it be? "Since you know that I have an immortal equipment, aren't you tempted?" Since he had already been seen through, Xiaoling Yu didn't have anything to hide. Instead, he asked very directly, "Immortal equipment. Who wouldn't be tempted? But we still need to cooperate with you. The treasure we want in the dragon's subduing valley is far more valuable than an ordinary immortal equipment. Besides, Brother Xiao was able to kill old Devil Wu, who was at the body integration stage, so you're not an ordinary person. Even if we're tempted by your immortal artifact, we still have to consider whether we can kill you. If we can't kill you, you'll come back and take revenge, which will make us very uncomfortable," the woman said very frankly. In fact, they didn't dare to act rashly because they didn't know Xiaoling Yu's background. If Xiaoling Yu was a disciple of a powerful force who went out to travel, and they couldn't kill Xiaoling Yu even if they made a move on him, then things would get out of hand. To be able to kill old Demon Wu, who was at the combination stage, the experts of the Cloud Gathering Treasure House had reason to believe that Xiaoling Yu wasn't as simple as he looked on the surface. Moreover, Xiaoling Yu had always been very calm and confident. It was rumored that Xiaoling Yu was just a lucky junior who hadn't even reached the out-of-body stage. But how could such a junior have a pet at the late stage of the spirit-severing stage? After the cooperation, you should kill the donkey after it has outlived its usefulness, right? Xiaoling Yu asked again. "We'll only know after the cooperation." The woman didn't give a definite answer. "I'm really curious. Since you have the strength to attack the dragon's subduing valley, you must have the strength to directly capture and kill me. If you directly kill me and steal the immortal equipment, won't you also have the chance to lure out the experts of the dragon's subduing valley?" Xiaoling Yu asked in confusion. Brother Xiao is a smart person. How can you not think of this? If we kill you and steal your immortal equipment to lure out the experts of the dragon's subduing valley, the success rate will definitely be very low. Because there's one more link, there's one more reason for them to be suspicious. We can't underestimate the intelligence of those old monsters who have lived for thousands of years. Only when the immortal equipment is still in your hands and you accidentally expose your identity again will their suspicions be lowered. After ordinary cultivators obtain the immortal equipment, they will definitely find a place to hide. Only someone like you, who has an unknown origin and obviously has something to inquire about, will be willing to take the risk to conceal his true identity and appear in front of others. Only then will it be possible for you to be discovered again. As I said just now, we are not sure if we can kill you if we make a move, and we're not sure if there will be any accidents after we kill you. Right now, we have a more important mission to complete than snatching the immortal equipment," the woman explained with a smile. "Then I'll start raising the conditions." Chapter 45. The communication spiritual bead, which was a supreme grade spiritual weapon, was extremely valuable. It was almost equivalent to a supreme grade defensive spiritual armor. Even existence like the Cloud Gathering Treasure House only had one. "Brother Xiao, please wait for a moment. I'll go get the communication spirit bead." After greeting him, the woman left the room and went straight to the third floor. In a secret room on the third floor, Luo Bo, who was wearing a red robe, slowly opened his eyes and asked with a smile, "How is it? Did you reach an agreement?" The woman nodded with a smile and said, "Yes," and he didn't ask for much. He just knew some secrets about us and this operation. Luo Bo touched his chin and said, "It's okay to know some secrets. We just need to finish this mission and we can leave the Feiyu continent." The woman asked, "Luo Bo, that guy's strength seems to have increased a lot. Last time I faced him, I couldn't see through him, but I didn't feel any danger from him. But this time, I felt a slight warning in my heart." Luo Bo smiled and said, "I also felt that it was strange. Last time, my spirit sense could enter his body, but this time, it couldn't. I was very surprised when you led him into the building. Last time I saw him, he was at most at the nascent soul stage. Now that I see him again, I'm sure his strength is close to the body integration stage. It's really unheard of to have such great progress in such a short time." The woman nodded in agreement and said, "I reckon he's a disciple from a major cultivation sect who came out to gain experience. Some time ago, he appeared at the auction of the Heaven Do auction house in Taiyang City. At that time, he and a body integration stage expert from the Tai Immortal sect were bidding for the dual-colored nascent soul fruit. The price of the dual-colored nascent soul fruit, which was only 1,000 years old, was raised to more than 10,000 high-grade spirit stones. In the end, the dual-colored nascent soul fruit was bought by a little girl who was said to be only at the gold core stage for 200,000 high-grade spirit stones. What was even more unexpected was that after the little girl bought the dual-colored nascent soul fruit, she left Taiyang City with that guy a few days later. It's obvious they're together. Luo Bo asked, "Where did that little girl come from?" "I didn't find anything, but a conservative estimate is that she's at the Grand Ascension stage because she was able to teleport the 3 severed soul stage cultivators millions of kilometers away. Furthermore, it was said that the body integration stage expert from the Tai Immortal sect had not appeared since then. I went to the transmission array and asked. That expert from the Tai Immortal sect did not take the transmission array to leave the Flying Feather continent. I also asked my subordinates to investigate, but they have not found any traces of that expert from the Tai Immortal sect." The woman said with a doubtful look, "You mean that little girl killed that body integration stage expert from the Tai Immortal sect?" Uncle Luo asked with a frown. "It's not impossible. At the very least, that little girl has the strength to teleport 3 severed soul stage experts away with a wave of her sleeve. I'm afraid even Uncle Luo can't do that, right?" The woman replied, "Haha, I just entered the Deshang stage, and I'm not very familiar with teleportation. How can I teleport others? However, this also shows that we're right to be cautious. It's also right that we didn't attack that guy. If that little girl is still secretly protecting him, we'll lose too much if we attack rashly," Luo Bo said with a smile. The woman said, "That guy is still waiting on the 2nd floor. He wants to borrow our extreme grade communication spiritual bead." "Oh," Luo Bo's eyes flashed and then said, "With his wealth, it's very easy for him to buy a high-grade communication spiritual bead. A high-grade communication spiritual bead is enough to cover the entire Flying Feather continent. He only has one purpose for borrowing the extreme grade communication spiritual bead, and that is to send a message across star fields. The person he wants to send a message to is definitely not on the Flying Feather continent." The woman added, "Although not on the Flying Feather continent, he only needs to teleport to the Flying Feather continent and then teleport a few times to find him." Luo Bo nodded and said, "In any case, before we figure out his background, even if he gives us the Emerald Immortal Bead, we can't take it. That Immortal Bead is only an auxiliary magic artifact. It's not offensive or defensive. Even if we get it, we won't get any benefits in a short time, and we can't use it to resist a powerful enemy." The woman replied, "Ping Er knows this." Luo Bo asked, "You should have seen the 3 severed spirit stage cultivators who saw the Deshang stage girl. Where are their origins?" The woman called Ping Er replied, "They're from the Scattered Alliance." "Scattered Alliance?" "A bunch of mobs who only know how to take advantage of others." Luo Bo sneered. "Ha! How can we easily control them if they're not mobs? The three of them have some disputes with that guy. In order to make this operation more thorough, we have to ask the three of them for help. Ping Air smiled and said, I'm very relieved when you do things. I have already sent a message to the sect members on the nearby continents. They will be able to send some masters over to help in a few days. If that Tai, the immortal sect master, was really killed by that little girl, then this brat has provoked the Black Blood Demon and Tai, the immortal sect, two top forces of the cultivation world. Even if we cooperate with them, we have to be careful and not let those two forces target us. Furthermore, we have to closely monitor the teleportation array in case the experts of the Tai, the immortal sect, and the Black Blood Devil sect arrive before our plan even starts or is in progress. Luo Bo instructed, after which he took out a fist-sized silver bead. After removing the ownership of the bead, he handed it to Ping Er and said, Go and do what you need to do. Don't let our companions wait for too long. Luo Bo and Ping Er's words didn't take up much time. Shaolin Yu didn't wait too long. After receiving the superb quality communication spiritual bead, Shaolin Yu asked, the protective restriction here shouldn't be able to block the transmission of messages from the superb quality communication spiritual bead, right? Ping Er nodded and said, only the superb quality spirit array can block the superb quality communication spiritual bead. The restriction and array we set up here can only be regarded as high quality. This superb quality communication spiritual bead is currently ownerless. You can use it after it recognizes you as its master. Shaolin Yu didn't ask any more questions. He immediately dripped a drop of blood into the superb quality communication spiritual bead and then took out the high quality communication spiritual bead he bought last time. It seemed like he was copying messages, but in fact, there was nothing in that high quality communication spiritual bead. However, during this process, Shaolin Yu didn't hesitate to release his chaotic energy and isolate Ping Er's spiritual sense. Then, Shaolin Yu's lips trembled slightly, and he chanted a sentence. Then, he activated the superb quality communication spiritual bead. After the superb quality communication spiritual bead trembled for a while, Shaolin Yu very consciously removed the master relationship with it. He didn't leave any messages in it, so naturally, he didn't need to clean it up. After he was done, he would return it. Right now, we still need to make some more preparations. Brother Xiao, please stay for a few more days. There are 1 million superb quality spirit stones here. Take it as a deposit. Please take a look. After Ping Er received the communication spiritual bead, she took out a bracelet and said, Shaolin Yu took the bracelet, glanced at it, and said, Don't forget to ask me about Earth. Brother Xiao, don't worry. We will do our best. Ping Er said, Then I will leave first. I will always be in Luoyu City. I believe that you can easily find me when you need me. Shaolin Yu cupped his hands, then got up and left. Ping Er didn't stop him, but she didn't send him to the door like last time. After Shaolin Yu left, Ping Er went to see Luo Bo again and returned the superb quality communication spiritual bead. After Luo Bo took the communication spiritual bead, his expression was a little suspicious. He said, Why is there nothing left in this bead? How can he erase all traces? Ping Er spread out her hands and said, I'm not too sure, but when he sent the message, I saw his lips. It seemed like he was telling someone his location. Luo Bo hesitated for a while, then finally sighed and said, Let's not care about this. Anyway, we're just cooperating with him. We don't have any ulterior motives. Our important matter is more important. I will urge my fellow disciples in a while. It's better to start early to avoid any more trouble. The reason why Shaolin Yu pretended to borrow the superb quality communication spiritual bead was that he wanted the masters behind the cloud gathering house to be afraid of him. He wanted them to think that he had a powerful background and not dare to act rashly. Although the cloud gathering treasure house's plan was very dangerous, Shaolin Yu still had to bite the bullet. Firstly, he was really afraid of angering the cloud gathering treasure house. After all, he didn't have a strong background. He only had a master who was said to be very powerful, and he had died a long time ago. Secondly, he felt that if he could hook up with a big power that covered the entire cultivation world, it would definitely be very beneficial for him in the future. Walking on the street of Liu City, Xiaoling Yu stopped a seemingly kind cultivator from time to time to inquire about the news of Earth. Occasionally, he would go to the material shops to see if he could find the materials he needed. Although he didn't inquire about the news of Earth, he felt that Liu City was not the same as before. There were more pedestrians, and many cultivators were looking around. Some masters even released their soul sense as if they were searching for something. These people aren't here for me, are they? Xiaoling Yu thought, feeling a little guilty. Recently, there were indeed turbulent undercurrents in Liu City. Hearing that the lucky guy who got the fairy weapon had recently appeared here, many cultivators rushed over. However, now that Xiaoling Yu had changed his appearance, they couldn't recognize him at all. Their soul sense couldn't spy on Xiaoling Yu unless they were stronger than Luo Bo, who had just entered the Mahayana stage. More and more cultivators were crowding into the Liu City, which made Xiaoling Yu feel a little scared. If he was recognized, and the people of a big city besieged him, he was afraid that only death would await him. Chapter 46. When the light feathers passed through the sky of Liu City, they would definitely fall down. However, if it was outside the city, everyone would just treat it as a scenery and ignore it. But if it was in the city, the guards in the city would work together to quickly clean up the light feathers that fell on the streets. If it was not cleaned up, over the years, Liu City would have been drowned by the light feathers long ago. And a strange place that the cultivators found was next to a few big trees in the southwest corner of Liu City. Those big trees looked like they were about to die, with withered leaves and little vitality. But according to some cultivators who lived in Liu City, those big trees had always been there, and they had always looked like they were about to die. It was just that they did not have the slightest bit of peculiarity, so no one cared about them. In the southwest corner of Liu City, there were no bustling streets, and there were even very few houses because there was almost no spiritual power overflowing from the ground here. Naturally, cultivators would not like to come here, let alone stay here. Even if someone came here occasionally, they would only take a glance and leave. If it were not for the countless cultivators who came here for the immortal artifact, and they carefully searched the entire Liu City in order to find Xiaoling Yu, it would probably take a long time for someone to discover the strangeness here. The strange thing about this place was that the feather that flew through the sky would also fall down. However, after the time it took to finish a cup of tea, it would mysteriously and abruptly disappear. Because of the interval of 10 minutes, the strangeness of this place had never been discovered by anyone until now. Why did the feathers that fell from the sky disappear? This became the question in everyone's mind, but it was easy for everyone to associate the key of the problem with the underground. Unfortunately, this Liu City was the property of the Dragon Subduing Valley. When the Dragon Subduing Valley built this big city, it would naturally set up layers of restrictions and formations to protect the sky and underground of this big city. It also did not allow cultivators to fly in the sky of Liu City or escape under Liu City. If everyone could enter the city through the sky or underground, why would the Dragon Subduing Valley collect the entrance fee at the city gate? Of course, if one's strength was very strong, one could directly fly in or drill into the ground. However, if one's strength was that strong, why would one care about a few low-grade spirit stones? Everyone originally wanted to go underground to take a look, but unfortunately, this required the consent of the Dragon Subduing Valley, and also required the cooperation of the experts that the Dragon Subduing Valley had placed in the Liu City to remove the restrictions in the southwest corner of the Liu City. The underground of Liu City was heavily fortified with restrictive spells and arrays, which even transcending tribulation stage experts dared not cross. Before the Dragon Subduing Valley gave a response, this matter had already spread in the Liu City, and it was also spread outside the Liu City through the communication spiritual beads of the cultivators. Everyone was guessing what was under those big trees. The more guesses there were, the more rumors there were. Gradually, it developed into an existence similar to the treasure trove in the Rockfall Desert. The Luoyu city had been very noisy recently, and as a result, it became even more lively. More and more cultivators rushed over, and the corner that no one cared about before was now surrounded by 3 layers of people. With such a big thing happening in their own city, the dragon-subduing valley naturally would not ignore it. After they received the news, they had the city guards surround the area around the trees with a radius of 300 meters, not allowing any cultivators to enter. The Luoyu city was the property of the dragon-subduing valley, so it was naturally their territory. Everything in their territory should belong to them, and they would not allow anyone else to touch it. However, the experts of the dragon-subduing valley were also very confused. Since the seniors of their sect had already set up layers of restrictions and arrays underground, it proved that their seniors had already thoroughly explored the underground. If there really was any treasure underground, it should have been discovered by their seniors long ago. Of course, one could not rule out the possibility that the treasure below was hidden too deeply in the past, so much so that the senior experts of the dragon-subduing valley did not discover it when they were setting up restrictions and arrays. Originally, this matter did not have much to do with Shaolin Yu, and he did not run over to watch. However, 2 days after that strange place was discovered, the entire Liu city suddenly shook violently, and after a short while, it started to shake again. The emerald-green immortal pearl in Xiao Lingyu's body, which had been held tightly in the hands of the primal chaos nascent soul, also started to tremble, and there were signs of it flying out of his body. Coincidentally, at this time, the woman called Ping'er from the Cloud Treasure House found Xiao Lingyu, saying that their operation would begin very soon because the accident in the Liu city was the best time for them to start. What's going on over there? After receiving the notice, Xiao Lingyu pointed to the southwest corner and asked Ping'er, "The experts of the dragon-subduing valley are opening the restrictions underground. It seems like something is coming out from the ground." Ping'er said vaguely. "What is it?" Xiao Lingyu asked. "It might be a good treasure," Ping'er said casually. "There is a treasure. Aren't you tempted?" Xiao Lingyu asked again. Hee. Whether there's really a treasure or not is still unknown. Even if there is, it is not our goal. We just need to complete the task we have set, and we don't want to complicate things. Ping'er laughed. "It seems that the things you want to steal from the dragon-subduing valley are really extraordinary." Xiao Lingyu said, "Our operation will start in these 2 days. I hope you won't have any accidents." Ping'er said. Just as Ping'er finished speaking, the sky of the Liu city suddenly buzzed. Everyone looked up and saw that in the sky, there are already clouds rolling, covering the sky and the sun. The dragon-subduing valley is really careful. They actually opened the city protection array, but this array is useless for a Deshang stage cultivator. And how can a cultivator who hasn't reached the Deshang stage take away the treasure of the dragon-subduing valley in the Liu city? Ping'er looked at the sky and said indifferently, "That's not necessarily true." Xiao Lingyu also replied expressionlessly. Ping'er looked at Xiao Lingyu and seemed a little doubtful. She couldn't help but say, if there are some special existences, it might not be true. For example, in the Rockfall Desert, no one thought that you could snatch the immortal treasure from old Demon Wu, and no one thought that you could actually kill old Demon Wu. You can rest assured that this time is not like the Rockfall Desert. This is the territory of the dragon-subduing valley, and there are countless cultivators eyeing it covetously. Among them, there are many experts in the combination stage, crossing tribulation stage, and even the Deshang stage. I won't do that kind of dangerous thing again. Xiao Lingyu waved his hand and replied, looking very honest. Although she was still a little worried, Ping'er was also a little afraid of Xiao Lingyu, so she wouldn't do something stupid like imprisoning him directly. However, after leaving, she still found someone to secretly keep an eye on Xiao Lingyu. Xiao Lingyu really didn't want to complicate things, because his situation on the Feiyu continent was already dangerous enough. He didn't dare to stand out in the Luoyu city where experts gathered. However, the development of events often did not depend on one's will or thoughts. Xiao Lingyu himself did not want to move recklessly, nor did he dare to move recklessly. However, the emerald green immortal pearl in his dantian was unable to calm down, and it always had the intention of seeping out of his body. If it had not already recognized Xiao Lingyu as its master and was under Xiao Lingyu's control, it would probably have flown out long ago. Once the green immortal bead flew out of Xiao Lingyu's body, in a place like the Liu City where experts were gathered, those experts would immediately sense it. Then, it would lead to terrible consequences. Xiao Lingyu could imagine it even with his feet. It hasn't even come out, but it can cause such a strong reaction from the green immortal bead. It seems like it's really a treasure, and its quality won't be worse than the green immortal bead. Why didn't Jiang Lanyue tell me? It must have been hidden so well that Jiang Lanyue didn't notice it. I hope that the treasure will be put away after it comes out, and that it won't attract my immortal bead. Xiao Lingyu guessed and prayed silently. The green immortal bead was his biggest reliance for cultivating the body and spirit transformation, and only by continuously transforming his body and spirit transformation could he quickly improve his cultivation of the 9-revolution chaos formula. Therefore, the green immortal bead was very important to Xiao Lingyu. Otherwise, he wouldn't have rushed into the Luoshi desert to participate in the treasure hunt when he was still in the golden core chaos stage. Boom! Just as Xiao Lingyu was feeling nervous, a sudden explosion shook the sky. The entire Liu City swayed wildly like a leaf in a fierce wind. Even a cultivator like Xiao Lingyu felt dizzy and could not stabilize his body. At the same time, a golden beam of light shot up into the sky and easily penetrated the great defensive array of the Liu City like a sharp sword piercing through snow. Shockingly, the golden beam of light was no less than 30 meters in diameter, and it released a shocking pressure that made Xiao Lingyu feel as if he was about to lose his mind. What Xiao Lingyu did not know was that the cultivators in the southwest corner of the Liu City, as long as their cultivation had not reached the form synthesis stage, were all frightened out of their wits when the beam of light shot out from the ground. Even the cultivators in the form synthesis stage or higher were pushed far away, and blood spurted out of their mouths as they were seriously injured. Under the impact of the golden beam of light, the great defensive array of the Liu City was very vulnerable. Not only was it pierced in an instant, but it also collapsed because it could not withstand the continuous pressure, and the clouds that shrouded the sky of the Liu City all disappeared. After about 10 breaths of time, a clear and loud phoenix cry, accompanied by a divine beast pressure, surged in the Liu City. At this time, the snake that was sleeping soundly in Xiao Lingyu's spirit beast bag woke up directly, and it crawled and breathed heavily. If someone looked down from the sky, they would find that the light feathers floating in the sky within 1,000 miles of the Liu City were all gathering in the Liu City, and in an instant, they covered the sky of the Liu City. Chapter 47. There's a fire phoenix here. How is that possible? Xiao Lingyu looked up at the sky and was shocked. At this time, he was not on Earth. At that time, he did not know much about the fire phoenix, but now he knew very well that the fire phoenix was a super divine beast, a high-level creature even rarer than the real dragon. Only the 5-clawed golden dragon could be compared with it. Xiao Lingyu had seen the fire phoenix on TV once on Earth. However, although the fire phoenix was real, Xiao Lingyu did not feel that it was real because he saw it on TV. But this fire phoenix was flying in the sky, and it looked so real. The fire phoenix had a long golden tail and flapped its wings full of golden flames. It hovered in the sky above Liu City, but it spread a mighty pressure of a super divine beast, which made all the cultivators feel depressed. The big snake in Xiao Lingyu's spiritual beast bag did not dare to raise its head at this time, and it looked very frightened and inferior. The big snake had the blood of the Tsang dragon, which was not as good as the flood dragon or the real dragon. Compared with the super divine beast, the fire phoenix, it was like heaven and earth. All the cultivators in Liu City were like Xiao Lingyu, and they were full of shock and disbelief. How could a fire phoenix be underground in Liu City? Everyone was thinking but no one dared to move. But what surprised everyone even more was that the fire phoenix did not hover in the sky for too long, and its body gradually disappeared, and the super divine beast's pressure also gradually disappeared. After 10 breaths, the fire phoenix had disappeared, and its pressure had also disappeared. But in the sky above Liu City, there was a long phoenix feather floating in the air. Around the phoenix feather, spots of golden light were slowly gathering, and the space was constantly fluctuating. At this moment, all the cultivators understood that what rushed out from the underground of Liu City was not the real super divine beast fire phoenix, but a phoenix feather, or just a feather of the super divine beast fire phoenix. However, even if it was just a phoenix feather, it was definitely an extremely powerful treasure. This could be seen from the commotion it created when it broke out of the ground. The commotion gradually subsided, and light feathers surged forth from the sky like waves. However, when they came within 3,000 feet of the phoenix feather, they would disappear without a trace. The feathers were as light as snow, and the phoenix feathers were like the sun. Snow was unable to get close to the sun. It was no wonder that Qing Yu, who was on the ground where the phoenix feather was, would suddenly disappear. After everyone was stunned for a moment, someone shouted, "Immortal weapon!" Then, all the experts in Liu City rose into the air and rushed toward the phoenix feather. Unfortunately, at this time, there were still violent spatial fluctuations around the phoenix feather. Even a cultivator at the crossing calamity stage or the great vehicle stage couldn't get close to it. Cultivators below the body integration stage were directly shaken away when they were touched by the spatial fluctuations and blood spurted out of their mouths. However, the spatial fluctuations around the phoenix feather didn't last for too long. They soon disappeared, and the space around the phoenix feather completely returned to normal. Just when everyone was about to rush over again, the phoenix feather trembled slightly in the air and released a powerful wave of qi. After pushing the experts away, it flew into the sky like a rainbow. Such a treasure was naturally very intelligent. It didn't want to be controlled by the cultivators, so it chose to escape. However, what Xiaolingyu didn't expect was that the green immortal bead in his dantian, which was originally trembling, broke free from the small hand of the chaotic nascent soul and emerged from the top of Xiaolingyu's head. Then, it chased after the phoenix feather and turned into an emerald rainbow that rushed into the sky. Xiaolingyu was mentally prepared for this, so he directly summoned the star-chasing pearl and followed it. Another immortal weapon. The experts in Liu City were excited. 2 immortal weapons had appeared at the same time. If they could get one of them, they would be able to do well in the cultivation world. Even in the entire cultivation world, there were only a handful of immortal artifacts, especially high-quality immortal artifacts. Ping and Uncle Luo were also watching from the side. Seeing Xiaolingyu fly away, Ping seemed a little angry. She clearly told Xiaolingyu not to make trouble, but he didn't listen to her. Our action can begin. 2 immortal weapons are enough to make most of the experts in the dragon subduing valley move out. As long as we can make them suffer heavy injuries, we can lure out their supreme elder. Uncle Luo transmitted a message to Ping, and then directly teleported away. Most of the cultivators in Liu City chased after the immortal treasure into the sky. Even if they couldn't get the treasure, it would be good if they could see it. Moreover, since ancient times, there have been rumors that the treasure would automatically choose its owner. It didn't necessarily belong to whoever had the highest cultivation. Sometimes, it also depended on luck and fortune. The flying speed of the immortal treasure was really not comparable to ordinary cultivators. Even the teleportation of the Deshang stage experts couldn't catch up. The phoenix feather with the emerald immortal pearl disappeared without a trace in just a few flashes. It also left the range of the Deshang stage cultivator's spiritual sense. The star-chasing star was only a top-grade spiritual weapon. In terms of quality, it was much worse than an immortal weapon. Naturally, it couldn't catch up with the 2 immortal weapons. However, the emerald immortal pearl recognized Xiaolingyu as its master. Xiaolingyu could determine the location of the emerald immortal pearl through the mental connection between the two. Even if the distance between the two was very far, he could at least vaguely sense a general direction. Therefore, Xiao Lingyu couldn't be chased, but he couldn't catch up either. Even if he couldn't catch up, Xiao Lingyu didn't stop. However, what made him depressed was that the connection between him and the emerald immortal pearl was getting weaker and weaker. Gradually, he could only vaguely sense the direction of the emerald immortal pearl. Moreover, this direction was still changing, which proved that the two immortal treasures weren't flying in a straight line. Controlling the star-chasing star, Xiao Lingyu wasn't in a hurry. He felt that the two immortal treasures would eventually stop or slow down. He should be the first cultivator to catch up with them. However, after chasing for an hour, Xiao Lingyu's communication's spiritual pearl vibrated. Ping, or sent a message to ask Xiao Lingyu to report his location. At the same time, she told Xiao Lingyu that their plan had already begun. Xiao Lingyu didn't know where he was at the moment, so he just gave a vague reply. Ping didn't ask any further. She just reminded Xiao Lingyu to inform them immediately if they stopped. The two immortal weapons escaped after they appeared. This wouldn't make the powerhouses on the Feiyu continent give up on the idea of snatching the treasures. Moreover, this news quickly spread to the cultivation continents near the Feiyu continent. More and more powerhouses rushed to the Feiyu continent through the teleportation array. Even for the top experts in the cultivation world, an immortal weapon was extremely valuable. Whenever an immortal weapon appeared in any cultivation continent, it would lead to a bloody battle. In order to snatch the immortal weapon, many cultivators would not hesitate to fight with their lives. The Feiyu continent suddenly became noisy. In the past, it was rare to see cultivators above the body integration stage. However, they could be seen frequently now. Although there weren't many of them, it was still very shocking. Even some of the cultivation continents that were discovered long ago didn't have so many powerhouses running around all day. Through Ping, Er's constant messages, Xiao Lingyu became nervous after learning about the current situation. More and more powerhouses were coming. In order to find immortal weapons, they would definitely search the entire Feiyu continent carefully. If they were intercepted by some powerhouse before he could catch up to the two immortal weapons, Xiao Lingyu would be dreaming if he wanted to find the emerald immortal bead again. As for the cloud-gathering treasure house's action against the dragon's subduing valley, it was also delayed because Xiao Lingyu's immortal weapon was lost. Although more than half of the dragon's subduing valley's powerhouses were scattered throughout the Feiyu continent to search for treasures, according to the cloud-gathering treasure house's spies in the dragon's subduing valley, the great elder of the dragon's subduing valley was still in the dragon's subduing valley. The more powerhouses swarmed over, the more the great elder of the dragon subduing valley didn't dare to leave the dragon subduing valley. It wasn't until 3 days later that Xiao Lingyu felt that the emerald immortal bead's position seemed to have stabilized. The two immortal treasures should have stopped. After all, they didn't have any energy support and couldn't escape at full speed. However, at this time, Xiao Lingyu discovered that the location of the emerald immortal bead seemed to be in the desolate ancient forest. Xiao Lingyu first sent a message to Ping, then activated Star Chaser and rushed towards the desolate ancient forest at full speed. For hours later, Xiao Lingyu had already entered deep into the desolate ancient forest. During this time, he did encounter a few demonic beasts that were not weak, but he did not have the heart to pay attention to them. Before Xiao Lingyu could reach the location of the emerald immortal bead, a flood dragon that was over 10,000 feet long pounced over. However, because Star Chaser's speed was too fast, the flood dragon did not hit its target. How unlucky! Why did I meet this guy again? Xiao Lingyu looked at the flood dragon and felt that it was very familiar. He couldn't help but curse in his heart. That flood dragon and Xiao Lingyu could be said to have a blood feud. It probably dreamed of pulling out Xiao Lingyu's tendons, skin, and bones and scatter his ashes. This time, when it met its enemy, it was exceptionally jealous. It actually burned its own dragon essence to increase its speed and strength, so that it could be on par with Star Chaser's speed. Xiao Lingyu felt extremely troubled. He had not found the emerald immortal bead yet, but he had been targeted by such an enemy. If he had to stop Star Chaser later, wouldn't it be very dangerous? However, only one tribulation stage flood dragon was not too bad of a situation. If it was in a place like Liu City, where high-level cultivators gathered, Xiaolingyu would have a bigger headache. Just like this, Xiaolingyu rode Star Chaser and brought the tribulation stage flood dragon along for another half an hour before they finally found the location of the emerald immortal bead. At this time, there was a tall mountain in front of Xiaolingyu, and the mountain was very large. The base of the mountain was more than 100 miles long, and the emerald immortal bead was at the peak of the mountain. Star Chaser fell from the sky, and Xiaolingyu could see clearly that the mountain was actually a volcano. Thick black smoke was rising from the volcano's crater, and there were also waves of scorching flames shooting up into the sky, reflecting the clouds and the sky red. Chapter 48. Xiaolingyu didn't hesitate to activate the star-chasing barrier again. He jumped into the roaring magma of the volcano and sent a message to Ping at the same time. Originally, Xiaolingyu wanted to wait for him to retrieve the emerald immortal pearl before informing Ping. However, the situation had changed. He needed Ping and the other experts of the Cloud Treasure House to help him deal with the tribulation passing stage flood dragon. The temperature of the magma was extremely high, but the defense of the emerald immortal pearl was even stronger. Xiaolingyu didn't have to worry too much. The flood dragon was also of the water attribute. It hated fire energy the most, and the belly of the volcano was a place where fire energy was very rich. Under normal circumstances, it would not easily go into the magma of the volcano, but now it was a special situation. In order to take revenge, it was even willing to burn its dragon essence, and it did not hesitate to rush into the sea of fire. The flood dragon's body flashed, and a blue light shield appeared around it. Then, like a flood dragon entering the abyss, it plunged into the belly of the volcano. The energy consumption of the emerald immortal pearl increased a lot, but it didn't reach the point where it would use up a few top-grade spirit stones in an instant. Xiaolingyu had plenty of time to chase after the emerald immortal pearl. However, the belly of the volcano was filled with roaring magma. Xiaolingyu couldn't see the emerald immortal pearl, and his spiritual sense couldn't cover a large area. He could only rely on his spiritual connection with the emerald immortal pearl to sense and determine the direction. However, Xiaolingyu didn't expect that less than an hour after he entered the belly of the volcano, his spiritual connection with the emerald immortal pearl would suddenly disappear. He couldn't even vaguely sense the general direction of the emerald immortal pearl. The flood dragon was still following behind, but because the environment here was very uncomfortable, it couldn't chase with all its might. It could only follow closely, but it couldn't stop Xiaolingyu, let alone attack him. The deeper they went, the higher the temperature of the magma. Xiaolingyu had to change the top-grade spirit stones for the emerald immortal pearl every 100 breaths. This naturally made the flood dragon very uncomfortable. If it wasn't for its uncontrollable killing intent, it would have retreated long ago. What should I do? Right now, I'm already in the depths of the magma sea. This place is so vast. When will I be able to find the emerald green immortal pearl? Xiaolingyu, who was running around like a headless fly, gradually became irritated. He really didn't like this kind of situation where he had no control. What Xiaolingyu didn't expect was that countless cultivators were rushing over. Most of them were powerhouses at the form synthesis stage and the crossing tribulation stage. There were even a few at the great vehicle stage. The news that the two immortal artifacts had ended up here was actually spread by the intelligence system of the Cloud Gathering Treasure House. Obviously, the Cloud Gathering Treasure House wanted to gather everyone here. Under their intentional control, the experts of the Dragon Subduing Valley also rushed over in large batches. The experts of the Dragon Subduing Valley naturally knew that this trip was dangerous, but they felt that the danger they were in was actually smaller than the others. This was because they came as a group and had the advantage in overall strength, while the other cultivators were alone or in small groups of 3 or 5. They didn't know that a conspiracy against them had already begun. On the way here, they had been discussing how to snatch the treasure, and they didn't seem to be very nervous. The human cultivators' large-scale invasion also angered the demon beast experts who had lived in the depths of the desolate ancient forest for a long time. They also surrounded them. Some demon beasts were the regional kings of this desolate ancient forest. They brought their own people and covered the sky. They looked like an army on an expedition, which also brought a lot of pressure to the human cultivators. However, the true experts of the crossing tribulation stage or the great vehicle stage were not afraid of the demon beast army. Even if they were surrounded, they were still confident that they could kill their way out. It was too difficult for such experts to stay. After all, they had at least 1 or 2 top-grade spirit artifacts. The intelligence of the powerful demon beasts was actually not inferior to that of humans. They quickly learned that 2 immortal artifacts had flown into the desolate ancient forest, which also made their minds active. Many demon beasts with ordinary bloodlines could transform into human form as early as when they were in the spirit-severing realm. In their human form, they could use magical treasures. The existence of immortal artifacts was also very attractive to them. The human race and the demon beasts surrounded the entrance of the volcano. Many cultivators who were very confident in their own strength directly plunged into the volcano. Everyone came to snatch the immortal artifacts, so there was nothing to hesitate about. Waiting at the entrance was impossible to snatch the immortal artifacts, and hoping that the immortal artifacts would fly out and throw themselves into their arms was also not very likely. Among the cultivators of the Dragon's Subduing Valley, there were 3 crossing tribulation stage experts and 1 great vehicle stage expert. There were also more than 10 body integration stage experts. After they arrived at the mouth of the volcano, the crossing tribulation stage and the great vehicle stage experts went down, while the body integration stage cultivators all stayed outside. In such a big scene of treasure snatching, the body integration stage experts could only play a very small role. For powerful forces like the Void Inquiry stage and the Dragon's Subduing Valley, they all left their body integration stage cultivators outside, mainly to prevent other cultivators from causing trouble outside the volcano. Soon, there were no more crossing tribulation stage and great vehicle stage experts at the mouth of the volcano. It was also at this time that the Cloud Gathering Treasure House finally made their move. Moreover, they sent out 2 great vehicle stage experts, 6 crossing tribulation stage experts, and more than 20 body integration stage experts. When they arrived at the mouth of the volcano, although everyone noticed them, no one paid special attention to them. Everyone thought that they were also here to snatch the treasure. After this group of cultivators from the Cloud Gathering Treasure House arrived, they first pretended to check the mouth of the volcano, then suddenly launched a surprise attack on the cultivators of the Dragon's Subduing Valley. There was no suspense in the battle. The 2 great vehicle stage cultivators on the Cloud Gathering Treasure House's side did not make a move at all. Only 2 crossing tribulation stage experts led more than 20 body integration stage cultivators. In less than 100 breaths of time, they killed more than 10 cultivators of the Dragon's Subduing Valley who stayed outside, leaving only 1 person. It was that person who used a top-grade spirit weapon to resist for a moment, and then used a very special escape technique to escape. Of course, that person seemed to have forcibly escaped, but in fact, the Cloud Gathering Treasure House deliberately let him go back. Even with the help of a top-grade spirit weapon, it was too difficult for a body integration stage cultivator to escape in front of a great vehicle stage expert. The other body integration stage cultivators who stayed at the mouth of the volcano were all very shocked. Someone actually dared to attack the cultivators of the Dragon's Subduing Valley on the Feiyu continent, and killed so many body integration stage experts of the Dragon's Subduing Valley in one move. This was definitely prepared. Regardless of the sect, all the body integration stage cultivators stayed away from the mouth of the volcano when the battle just broke out, fearing that they would also be affected. What was even more unexpected was that this group of ruthless cultivators did not go down into the volcano, but scattered around the volcano, looking calm and unruffled. Ping was also among this group of cultivators. When she came, she sent a message to Xiaoling Yu, but Xiaoling Yu could not come out to see her. Xiaoling Yu, like many experts, was looking for the two immortal treasures, but this time he did not have the slightest advantage. He also inevitably encountered many tribulation stage or great vehicle stage experts, but everyone was anxious to find the treasures, so there was no conflict. Of course, those experts would not stop to help him repel the flood dragon. Xiaoling Yu wanted Ping to invite an expert to help, but unfortunately, even if Ping was willing to help, the expert she invited might not be able to find Xiaoling Yu, because Xiaoling Yu did not dare to stop at this time. In this way, another 2 hours quickly passed. Finally, there was an accident in this torrential sea of fire. Originally, there was only a surging undercurrent in the sea of magma, but at this moment, there were suddenly raging waves. Moreover, it was more like a surging river. All the cultivators, including Xiaoling Yu, followed the direction of the magma flow. Not much time passed, and Xiaoling Yu rode the flood dragon and saw the phoenix feather. To Xiaoling Yu's incomparable surprise, his emerald green bead had been embedded at the root of the phoenix feather, and the two immortal treasures were seamlessly combined together. The phoenix feather was surrounded by a very large firebird, but the firebird's expression was very painful, and its body was constantly pouring into the phoenix feather along with the torrential magma. The phoenix feather did not seem to be huge, but it could endlessly absorb the torrential magma, and the firebird seemed to be forcibly imprisoned by the phoenix feather as an artifact spirit. The emerald green immortal bead now revealed a fiery light, and the phoenix feather was even more powerful. Although it was only a feather, it appeared as proud and noble as the super divine beast fire phoenix. Looking at the rapidly disappearing magma underground and feeling the powerful aura of the phoenix feather, all the cultivators were very surprised, and their expressions were even more fanatical than when they were in Liu City. Anyone could see that the quality of the two immortal treasures would definitely increase greatly after combining into one, and it was definitely not something an ordinary immortal treasure could compare to. However, although the two immortal treasures had already combined, their evolutions seemed to have not completed, so they were very unstable and violent. If everyone went over to snatch it now, they would probably be attacked by them. So, the knowledgeable cultivators were very rational and did not move, and at the same time, were vigilant of other cultivators. Xiaoling Yu did not have the time to watch, as the tribulation stage flood dragon was chasing after him. So he could only ride the star chaser and fly around randomly nearby. My relationship with the emerald green immortal bead won't be erased because it combined with the phoenix feather, right? Xiaoling Yu thought gloomily. If that was really the case, then he would suffer a great loss. There were also some irrational cultivators who wanted to take this opportunity to rush up and snatch the immortal treasure, but when they got close, they were seriously injured by the phoenix feather and fell back. The phoenix feather absorbed the magma at a frightening speed, but it did not seem to be ready to absorb all the magma here. It just absorbed it without restraint for 4 hours, and then stopped, its whole body flickering with fiery light. The firebird was also completely absorbed, and in the end, its body shrunk many times and sank into the emerald green immortal bead. The firebird should be the fire spirit that had been nurtured in this sea of magma for many years. It was the favorite of fire-type cultivators, and also the best choice as the artifact spirit of fire-type magic treasures. Chapter 49. There was a mental connection, which proved that the relationship between the two sides still existed. What Xiaoling Yu was not sure was whether it was only the emerald green or his own magic weapon, or the two immortal tools that had just been combined were both his magic weapons. If it was the latter, Xiaoling Yu naturally earned a lot. But even if it was the latter, he was not happy, because there were too many masters around. He may not be able to take away the immortal tool that belonged to him. After the phoenix feather calmed down, the masters of the crossing calamity stage and the Deshang stage had no reason to wait any longer. They took action one after another and rushed forward. There were even two Deshang stage powerhouses who directly teleported to the front of the Phoenix Feather. The two masters of the Deshang stage who arrived first, one reached out to grab the Phoenix Feather, and the other was a little slower, but he waved his hand to the Deshang stage cultivator next to him. The Deshang stage cultivator who had just reached out to grab the Phoenix Feather felt the threat brought to him by the masters of the same level. If he took the palm of the other party, even if the immortal tool was in his hand, he would be seriously injured before he could use it. Even if it was a master of the Deshang stage, if he was seriously injured in this situation, even if he got the immortal tool, he would not have time to recognize and refine it, let alone use it. Therefore, the Deshang stage cultivator retracted his palm that was about to touch the Phoenix Feather, but he ran his power and fought with the opponent. Then both of them retreated more than 10 feet before they stabilized their bodies. Other cultivators also rushed up, but they fell into a battle one after another. As long as the cultivator dared to approach the Phoenix Feather, he would be attacked by other cultivators. No one present dared or had the ability to face the collective attack of so many crossing Calamity Stage and Deshang Stage cultivators alone, so no one dared to touch the Phoenix Feather again. Even if they used their magic weapon to catch it, they would be blocked by other cultivators. With so many Deshang Stage and crossing Calamity Stage masters gathered together to fight, the scene was naturally very spectacular, and the momentum was also very mighty. In just a few moments, the underground magma sea of fire was already stormy, and the whole volcano was trembling. Huge rocks fell from the top and fell into the sea of fire. Even though Xiao Lingyu had Zhue Xing's defense, she did not dare to get close to the battlefield. There was no lack of supreme-grade spirit weapons there. If Zhue Xing's defense forcefully charged over, it would not last for even a moment. However, Xiao Lingyu was unable to make the emerald green immortal pearl fly towards her. The Tribulation Stage Flood Dragon was still chasing after Xiao Lingyu, but it had used up too much of its energy. Furthermore, it would have to face the heavenly tribulation in the future, so it did not dare to use up too much of its dragon essence. Otherwise, when the heavenly tribulation arrived, it would be destroyed in both body and soul. However, it hated Xiao Lingyu to the core and was unwilling to give up this opportunity to hunt her down. After all, if this detestable human cultivator were to hide after this, it would be extremely difficult for it to find her again. In the span of 100 breaths, the battle between nearly 20 masters of the crossing Calamity Stage and the Deshang Stage collapsed the entire volcano. Everyone was facing the collapsed rocks and continued to fight. Those rocks and the collapse of the mountains had no pressure and threat to them. Looking from the outside, the mountain was huge. The base of the mountain covered a radius of hundreds of miles. It was like a huge wave that rose high and quickly crept down. In an instant, the entire mountain turned into a large area of ruins under the splashing of magma and dust. The mountain fell into the underground sea of fire, making the terrain here look more like a huge basin. The Phoenix Feather was suspended less than 100 meters above the ground. Its color had been restrained, and there was no power fluctuation. Only the emerald green immortal pearl was still shining. The fire spirit in the immortal pearl was slowly floating. Xiao Lingyu rode Zhue Xing and continued to dodge the Tribulation Stage Flood Dragon. After a few moments, he saw Ping, and rushed over with the Flood Dragon. "Help me stop this long worm." Xiao Lingyu sent a message to Ping. Ping smiled slightly and said to Luo Bo beside her, "Do you want to help him?" Robert thought for a moment and said, "Although he's no longer of much use to our plan, it's still a piece of cake. Why not?" When Xiao Lingyu rushed over, Luo Bo's body flashed and blocked in front of the Tribulation Stage Flood Dragon. Then he slapped out with one palm. The power of a Grand Ascension Stage expert formed a big energy palm with vigorous power. All of a sudden, the momentum of the Flood Dragon was stopped, and the blue protective light shield was smashed. Ayo! The Flood Dragon suffered a loss and let out a dragon roar that shook the sky, attracting the attention of the nearby Monster Masters. The Monster Masters had always disliked each other, But once such a situation occurred, they would automatically join forces to deal with the human cultivators. Just when some beastkins who knew this crossing calamity stage flood dragon and had a little friendship with it were about to come over to help, the people of the cloud gathering treasure house suddenly released their chi, causing the wind in the air to become stronger and the space to tremble. After those beastkins judged the situation, they dispelled the idea of coming over to help at the same time. Some continued to watch the battle, while some directly joined in the chaotic battle. The tribulation stage flood dragon was very angry, but it was not blinded by hatred. It knew that the hateful human cultivator had a very strong backer. As long as it was not deliberately looking for death, it knew that it should retreat at this time. As long as the green hills are there, one need not worry about firewood. The crossing calamity stage flood dragon also understood this principle. If it lost its life, how could it take revenge? Can you guys charge and disperse those masters surrounding the immortal tool? It will only take half an hour, and I can bring back the immortal tool. Xiaoling Yu sent a message to Ping Er. Ping Er asked Luo Bo. Luo Bo smiled and said, "Sooner or later, we will have to charge, but if we can wait for them to exhaust themselves for a while, the damage on our side will be less." After pondering for a moment, Luo Bo said, "But since that kid has such a request, we can help him again. We are not fighting for the immortal tool. Killing the Grand Ascension Stage Master of the Dragon Subduing Valley will be considered as completing the mission." Ping nodded silently and sent a message to Xiaoling Yu. "Get ready. We will start in a while. The scene may be a little chaotic. You have to be careful and protect yourself. Start." When Luo Bo saw that the Grand Ascension Stage cultivator of the Dragon's Subduing Valley was at a disadvantage in the battle, he immediately gave the order to attack. Suddenly, the two Grand Ascension Stage Masters of the Cloud gathering treasure house appeared on the battlefield at the same time. They were accompanied by 6 Tribulation Stage cultivators and more than 20 Unity Stage Masters who were proficient in joint attack tactics. They also killed the 3 Tribulation Stage cultivators of the Dragon Subduing Valley. Such an organized and purposeful group of cultivators launched an attack at the same time. It was like a stormy wave hitting the shore, with an unparalleled momentum, immediately making the battlefield more chaotic. It also made a large number of masters surrounding the Phoenix feather break. Xiaoling Yu didn't care about how the experts of the Cloud gathering treasure house and the Dragon Subduing Valley fought. He took advantage of this excellent opportunity and didn't give the crossing calamity stage flood dragon the chance to continue chasing after him. He directly rode the chasing star with all his defenses open and plunged into the group of cultivators. There wasn't much time left. Once those experts who had been thrown into confusion came back to their senses, their attention would definitely be focused on the Phoenix feather. However, Xiaoling Yu didn't need much time. Chasing Star brought him to the front of the Phoenix feather in a flash, and then he waved his hand and grabbed it. The Phoenix feather did not resist and was firmly grasped by Xiaoling Yu. However, Xiaoling Yu still underestimated the reaction speed of those Grand Ascension Stage and Tribulation Stage Masters. As soon as he grabbed the Phoenix feather, there was already a top-grade spirit sword with a sharp sword light piercing towards him. With a bang, the defensive shield of Chasing Star was pierced by the top-grade spirit sword. Chasing Star, who was hit hard, flew backward like a falling leaf in the wind with Xiaoling Yu. However, even so, Xiaoling Yu still held the Phoenix feather in his hand and also used the other party's attack to escape from the most intense battlefield. Most of the masters who came to fight for the immortal artifact had already recovered and rushed towards Xiaoling Yu. Xiaoling Yu originally wanted to run away directly, but he did not expect that the Tribulation Stage Flood Dragon also saw the opportunity at this time and rushed in front of him first, blocking his escape route and punching the hull of Chasing Star's ship. Chasing Star, like a falling meteor, rushed towards the group of cultivators who were rushing towards Zheng Chao. In an instant, Xiaoling Yu was heavily surrounded. There were no less than 5 powerhouses at the Great Vehicle Stage and nearly 20 powerhouses at the Crossing Calamity Stage around him. Some of these cultivators came from the Feiyu continent, while some came from other cultivation continents near the Feiyu continent. Under normal circumstances, if Shaolin Yu took the risk alone, facing so many masters, even if he released the snake that had just reached the combination stage, he would only have a dead end. Shaolin Yu hurriedly asked Ping for help, but Ping Er's response was that they could not spare anyone to help. Even if they could spare someone, the cloud-gathering treasure house would have to think twice. After all, there were too many masters who wanted the immortal artifact, and they could not deal with them at all. Luo Bo and another Grand Ascension Stage cultivator had already beaten the Grand Ascension Stage cultivator of the Dragon's Subduing Valley to the point that he could not fight back, and one of the 3 Tribulation Stage cultivators of the Dragon's Subduing Valley had already fallen. The Cloud-Gathering Treasure House's goal of this trip was about to be achieved, and they would not cause unnecessary trouble. It was also the fault of the Dragon's Subduing Valley cultivators that they had always been too arrogant. At this time, when they were surrounded, the other masters from the Feiyu continent did not help at all. Everyone was even happy to see them being killed one by one. Shaolin Yu, like the Dragon's Subduing Valley cultivators, was in a dangerous situation of isolation and helplessness. He watched as the Tribulation Stage Flood Dragon pounced from behind, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws, and watched as a large number of masters drove the supreme-grade spirit artifact to turn into a stream of light that was about to pierce through his body. Shaolin Yu, who was almost desperate, roared in the air, and the chaotic energy in his body crazily poured into the phoenix feather. Then he held this immortal artifact that was made up of 2 immortal artifacts and swept it around his body. Chapter 50. Under the impact of that circle of fire wave, with Shaolin Yu as the center, the area within a radius of 10,000 feet was instantly cleared. Whether it was the cultivators' magic treasures, talismans, or the cultivators themselves, they were all pushed far away by that circle of fire wave. Even the cultivators of the Cloud-Gathering Treasure House and the Dragon's Subduing Valley who were fighting to the death were greatly affected. Luo Bo and Ping both looked at Shaolin Yu in surprise. At the same time, they used all their strength to stimulate their defense to resist the fire wave that was so hot that it could burn the space until it trembled slightly. Some of the tribulation passing experts who did not have time to use all their strength to defend were directly cut in half by the fire wave. Even their nascent souls were burned into nothingness by the fire wave. Everything within 1,000 miles of this desolate ancient forest was swept away, and even the ground cracked open a few wide and long gullies. The power of an immortal weapon was indeed earth-shattering. Several great Ascension Stage experts were not injured because they had already passed the heavenly tribulation and had immortal spiritual power in their bodies. The defense formed by immortal spiritual power was naturally not so easy to break. Although the immortal weapon was powerful, it also required the cultivation of the cultivator holding the immortal weapon to be strong enough. If Shaolin Yu was a great Ascension Stage expert and used immortal spiritual power to activate this immortal weapon, it was afraid that this sweep would be able to kill all the cultivators who besieged him. Just as the cultivators were shocked, Shaolin Yu had already quickly formed a seal. After a slight tremble, Chasing Star also flew into the sky. The Tribulation Passing Stage Flood Dragon had just been injured by the fire wave released by the immortal weapon, but it was still unwilling to see Shaolin Yu escape unscathed. It also rushed into the sky. Even those experts who had no enmity with Shaolin Yu could not watch Shaolin Yu take away such a powerful immortal weapon. They also jumped up and went straight into the sky. Shaolin Yu did not hold back. He waited until Chu Xing had begun to accelerate. Then he faced the cultivators who were chasing after him. He activated the primal chaos energy in his body and made the phoenix feather sweep out a crescent-shaped fire wave. The half-moon-shaped fire wave fell from the sky at extremely fast speed, and in an instant, those cultivators were pushed away again. The one chasing at the front was the Tribulation Passing Stage Flood Dragon. Unfortunately, it also suffered the heaviest attack. Not only did its body directly explode, but even its dragon nascent soul collapsed on the spot. As for the tribulation passing stage and great ascension stage experts, they fell from the sky like dumplings and smashed into the ruins composed of magma and gravel. After all, Chasing Star was a superb flight spirit weapon. After a few flashes, it had already disappeared with Shaoling Yu without a trace. Even a master of the Deshang stage who was about to transform from spiritual awareness to immortal awareness couldn't find it. After Chasing Star flew for a while, Shaoling Yu propped up a defensive shield, but his chest rose and fell violently. His face was covered in cold sweat, which proved how nervous he was just now. The first time he fully urged the Phoenix Feather, he had consumed more than 60% of Shaoling Yu's power. As for the second time, he was desperately trying to forcibly drive such a powerful immortal weapon. Shaoling Yu could not be regarded as unscathed. At least his power had been exhausted. His chaotic nascent soul also seemed extremely tired and weak. He had no power to fight again. However, Shaoling Yu was lucky enough to be able to escape under the siege of so many experts. If he had not been promoted to the chaotic nascent soul stage before, he would not even be able to urge this Phoenix Feather at all. Chasing Star's speed had been pushed to the maximum. It first flew into the starry sky, and then began to fly parallel. At this time, Shaoling Yu felt that he was out of danger. After relaxing, he suddenly remembered that he should seize the opportunity to recover his power. So he first took a spirit pill to regulate his blood and qi, and then began to absorb the spiritual power in the top-grade spirit stone to transform it into chaotic energy. Not long after, Shaoling Yu's power had not yet recovered, but Ping Er's message had already arrived. The battle between the cloud-gathering treasure house and the dragon subduing valley had ended. There were no accidents. Whether it was the number of people or the magic weapon, the cloud-gathering treasure house had the absolute advantage. The Great Ascension Stage cultivator of the dragon's subduing valley had directly fallen in the desolate ancient forest. Although he had gone through a lot of hardships and survived the heavenly tribulation that everyone feared, he still failed at the last moment and was unable to see the glory of the immortal world. As for the 3 crossing calamity stage cultivators of the dragon subduing valley, 2 of them died in battle. The remaining one was also deliberately held back by the cloud-gathering treasure house and successfully escaped with serious injuries. I was in so much danger just now, and so many experts of the cloud-gathering treasure house didn't come to help me. Now, they want me to take the risk to help them complete their plan. Do they think I'm a fool? Shaoling Yu put away the communication spiritual bead and did not reply to Ping Er. After muttering to himself, he continued to recover his power. After escaping from the desolate ancient forest for more than half a day, Shaoling Yu finally recovered. He felt that his power was full and his spirit was high. He opened his eyes, first looked around, and then looked a little confused. Where did I fly to? What entered his eyes was a void, and in the distance, there were stars shining. Was this the starry sky? Shaoling Yu was very curious. When he was on Earth, he dreamed that he could fly to the starry sky one day, or take a spaceship to experience the feeling of traveling in space. He did not expect that today it would become a reality. This endless starry sky seems to have been like this since ancient times, but which one is Earth? Facing the vast starry sky, Shaoling Yu felt that even though he was not weak, he still seemed very small. Compared to this world, even if he cultivated to the Grand Ascension stage, he could not be considered strong. At the same time, he thought of Earth very gloomily. Earth was also in this world of stars, but it was definitely not close to the Flying Feather Continent. The most important thing was that Shaoling Yu could not determine which direction the Earth was in the Flying Feather Continent. Shifting his gaze to his feet, Shaoling Yu did not see the Flying Feather Continent. It seemed that chasing stars at full speed for more than half a day was enough to fly out of the Flying Feather Continent. Finally, Shaoling Yu saw the phoenix feather that formed a circle on his knees. This phoenix feather should be more than 3 meters long. The hair was soft and smooth, but it could immediately warm one's body. At the root of the phoenix feather, the emerald green immortal pearl was still shining with a faint fluorescent light. If one looked closely, they could see that the fire spirit, which had shrunk many times, was floating unconsciously. The two immortal artifacts were combined into one, and there was a very powerful fire spirit as the artifact spirit. Xiao Yu could not determine the quality of this new immortal artifact with his knowledge, but this phoenix feather was definitely not a low-grade immortal artifact. The most conservative estimate was that it was a middle-grade immortal artifact. It was very impressive for ordinary cultivators to have an immortal artifact. If a Grand Ascension Stage expert had an ordinary low-grade immortal artifact, it was enough to dominate the cultivation world. Not to say that they were invincible, but at least it was enough to deter one party. Xiao Yu was not too excited. Immortal artifacts were actually not the most powerful magic treasures he had. Whether it was the half of the silver moon blade left behind by Jiang Lanyue or the silver needle left by her cousin, they were all divine artifacts. However, Xiao Yu's current strength was too far away from that of a god, so he could not make the divine artifacts release their powerful power in his hands. To the current Xiao Yu, immortal artifacts were actually better than divine artifacts. Next, Xiao Yu tried to use his mind to connect with this immortal artifact. There was no resistance at all, but it was a little difficult for him to use his spiritual sense to make this immortal artifact attack automatically. This should be because he had not refined it yet. This immortal artifact now had to be held in Xiao Yu's hands and poured energy into it to make it work. In fact, this immortal artifact originally contained a lot of energy. At the very least, it had absorbed a huge amount of magma. The magma should not have been stored in the immortal artifact. Instead, the immortal artifact had absorbed the fire-type energy essence. With a thought, the phoenix feather disappeared from Xiao Yu's knees and fell into his dantian. It was held in the hands of the chaos nascent soul. The chaos nascent soul was expressionless. Primal chaos, true fire, continuously appeared in its two small hands and merged drops of Xiao Yu's essence blood into the immortal artifact. Now that he had recovered his powers, Xiao Yu needed to think about where he should go from here on out. He was very unwilling to go back to the Feiyu continent because there were too many experts waiting for him and looking for him. It would be too dangerous for him to go back. As for the agreement with the Cloud Gathering Treasure House, Xiao Yu did not take it seriously at all. He did not swear on his soul, so there was no need to abide by such an agreement. If he did not return to the Feiyu continent, Xiao Yu did not have experience in space travel and did not know the location of other continents. It would take him a long time to return to the cultivation world. If he used the interstellar transmission array on the Feiyu continent, he could quickly reach another cultivation world. Just as Xiao Yu made up his mind to directly travel through space to another cultivation world, Ping sent a message. She said that their intelligence personnel had found a person from Earth. This news made Xiao Yu very excited. After all, he had left Earth for more than 10 years. After searching for so long, he could not find any trace of information about Earth, let alone find a person from Earth who had been transported there like him. However, he was also very suspicious and suspected that this was a trap set by the Cloud Gathering Treasure House. Ask that person what goodbye meant. Xiao Yu sent a message to Ping Er. After a while, Ping Er replied, "That person said it meant goodbye. Okay, you guys wait for me at Luoyu City." Xiao Yu replied without thinking. "We might have been exposed. We can't go to Luoyu City. It's too dangerous there. Let's meet at Taiyang City. That's the territory of the Tai Immortal Sect, and it's a small city. The experts of the Dragon Subduing Valley usually don't go there." Ping Er instructed. "Okay." After Xiao Yu replied, he made Chasing Star turn around and quickly went back in the direction he came from. After half a day, Xiao Yu saw a very thick continent in front of his eyes. It was the Feiyu continent. It was like an ark floating in the vast sea of stars, slowly moving. With something on his mind, Xiaoling Yu did not have time to appreciate the scenery of the Feiyu continent. When he was about to reach Taiyang City, he put away Chasing Star and flew on his own. It took him 2 hours to reach Taiyang City. Many experts knew Chasing Star, so Xiaoling Yu had to be careful. After reaching Taiyang City, Xiaoling Yu sent a message to Ping again. No need to enter the city. We'll wait for you 100 miles northeast of Taiyang City. Ping replied. 100 miles was only a few minutes for Xiaoling Yu. A small valley was in front of him. At the entrance of the valley stood Ping who was wearing a pink dress. Chapter 51. It was obvious that the man without any cultivation should be the earthling who was teleported to the cultivation world with Xiaoling Yu. However, this man was obviously not as lucky as Xiaoling Yu. After being teleported to the Feiyu continent for so long, he actually did not have any cultivation. However, it was already considered good that he did not die here. Xiaoling Yu quickly walked to the entrance of the valley. He first cupped his fists and said to Ping in a seemingly sincere manner, "Thank you. Brother Xiao, you're welcome. This is what we should do. After all, there is such a clause in our agreement." Ping said with a smile. Little brother Xiao is really young and promising. To be able to snatch the immortal artifact in front of so many experts, this old man admires you. Uncle Luo also said in a seemingly amiable manner, "This senior is?" Xiaoling Yu could not see through Uncle Luo's cultivation, but he could feel that this red-robed old man's cultivation was very impressive. This is Uncle Luo. Ping first introduced him, then continued. Brother Xiao, our operation has already begun. Although the dragon-subduing valley has suffered quite a bit this time, and they are very angry, we still need to make them suffer a bit more in order to achieve our goal. Right now, the Feiyu continent is very chaotic. We have to take action as soon as possible. So, Brother Xiao, please put on a big show with us again. That's easy to say. Can you let me say a few words to this person first? Xiaoling Yu pointed at the man with no cultivation and asked, Brother Xiao, let's put on a big show first, and then he'll be yours. After we're done, you guys can talk for as long as you want, Ping said with a smile. She rejected Xiaoling Yu's request in a straightforward manner. Xiaoling Yu first frowned, then nodded and said, That's fine, but I want to ask him 2 more questions, and then we'll talk about cooperation. Brother Xiao, please go ahead. Ping did not refuse this time. Have you seen or heard of any other people from Earth? Xiaoling Yu asked that person. Replying to this senior, I was brought here in a daze. I thought this was the hall of hell or heaven. After people die, they will come here. That person replied very respectfully. In his opinion, the person in front of him must be very powerful. Xiaoling Yu was even more certain that this person was an earthling when he heard the words Hell's Palace and Heaven. However, the other party's answer disappointed him. After frowning for a moment, Xiaoling Yu continued to ask, How long have you been here? The man scratched his head and replied, I can't remember the exact time, but it should be around 10 years. The time could also be matched. Xiaoling Yu asked again, Where are you from on Earth? Just as that person was about to speak, Ping waved her sleeve, and he fell to the ground. 2 cultivators walked out of the valley and carried him away. Xiaoling Yu was about to stop them when Ping said, Brother Xiao, I've asked the 2 questions. We should talk about the next step of the plan. Xiaoling Yu did not say anything, nor did he do anything. At this moment, 3 cultivators walked out of the valley. Among the 3, there was a fatty with a black and white beard. There was also a cultivator in a Taoist robe and a cultivator in a cloak. So I can still see acquaintances. Xiaoling Yu's expression changed slightly, but he still sneered. Are they also from the cloud-gathering chamber? Xiaoling Yu's heart tensed up slightly. Brother Xiao, please don't misunderstand. These 3 are members of the Loose Alliance, and the Loose Alliance has always had a good relationship with our cloud-gathering treasure house. That's why we were fortunate enough to invite these 3 friends to help us, Ping said. These 3 rogue cultivators should have all taken the 10,000 years queen bee nectar. Now they were all at the late stage of the spirit-severing stage. However, at this time, in front of them, not only was Ping at the combination stage, but also Luo Bo at the Deshang stage. They naturally looked very well behaved and didn't dare to make a sound. The next step is also related to the three of them. Xiaoling Yu asked curiously. Of course it's related. On the Feiyu continent, there aren't many cultivators who have interacted with Brother Xiao, and they have some misunderstandings with Brother Xiao. So, it makes sense that they were the ones who discovered Brother Xiao. They found Brother Xiao and then revealed Brother Xiao's hiding place to the dragon subduing valley. If nothing unexpected happens, we can expect big things. Ping nodded and said, in the desolate ancient forest, the dragon subduing valley has already suffered a great loss. They must know that someone is preparing to deal with them. Even if there is an immortal artifact, they might not be willing to come out, right? Xiaoling Yu asked. He, they will come out, because the great elder of the dragon subduing valley is even stronger than the grand ascension stage. As the saying goes, the skilled are bold. As long as he is tempted by the immortal artifact, there is a high chance that he will come out to find you. Pinger said with a smile. Even stronger than the grand ascension stage? Could it be rogue immortal? Xiaoling Yu asked in surprise. Brother Xiao, don't worry. As long as the great elder of the dragon subduing valley comes out, the spies we arrange in the dragon subduing valley will inform us immediately, and I will inform Brother Xiao that you won't meet that old fellow head-on. Even if that old fellow doesn't come out, there will definitely be other experts from the dragon subduing valley coming out to find you. If we kill some more of their experts, that old fellow will definitely come out after he gets angry. Pinger, comforted. I hope you can organize properly and don't do anything that will disappoint you or me. Otherwise, you will definitely regret it. Xiaoling Yu nodded in response. Although his words were light, they carried a threatening tone. A few days later, the three rogue cultivators who had wanted to scheme against Xiaoling Yu appeared in a small town on the outskirts of the Falling Rock Desert. Then, they seemed to have accidentally encountered an early-stage unification stage dragon subduing valley cultivator. Junior greets Senior Wei. The three rogue cultivators had known this early-stage unification stage dragon subduing valley cultivator before. Now that they met, they naturally went up to greet him. The dragon subduing valley cultivator looked like a middle-aged man in his 40s. He had a handsome appearance, but at this moment, his face was gloomy. The dragon subduing valley had just suffered a heavy blow, and every disciple of the dragon subduing valley could not be happy. So it's the three of you. You guys are quite lucky. You have all made great progress. Cultivator Wei also had the arrogance of a dragon subduing valley disciple. He only glanced indifferently at the three rogue cultivators before speaking in a calm tone. No matter how much progress we make, we are not as good as Senior. May I ask why an expert like Senior would come to such a desolate place like the Falling Rock Desert? The fat cultivator asked respectfully. Brother Ba, how can you inquire about Senior Wei? Are you courting death? The cloaked cultivator hastily replied. That's right. Senior Wei definitely didn't come here to kill a few sand demons like us. The cultivator in Taoist robes echoed. Don't play dumb. Who on the Flying Feather Continent doesn't know that our dragon subduing valley has just suffered a heavy blow, and we are currently searching for traces of our enemies? Cultivator Wei coldly said, those thieves are truly audacious. They deserve to die 10,000 deaths. The three rogue cultivators chimed in again. If you have something to do, go do it. If you have any clues, you must promptly notify me. Of course, I won't shortchange you. I will be near this town for the next few days. With that said, Cultivator Wei waved his hand and dismissed the three rogue cultivators. Another day passed. Far away from the small town where Cultivator Wei was staying, a ring of fiery red radiance suddenly appeared. A vast and mighty aura shook the earth and mountains. Even though it was very far away, a fierce gust of wind swept up a sky full of sand, almost burying the small town. Cultivator Wei hastily rushed over to take a look. Apart from a huge crater and scorched earth, he didn't find any clues. The only thing he was certain of was that the crater was created by an extremely powerful fire attribute magic treasure. Another day passed. Cultivator Wei heard that the leaders of a few large and small powers in the outer perimeter of the Rockfall Desert had all been killed by their enemies last night. Moreover, their enemies had an extremely powerful fire attribute magic treasure in their hands. Cultivator Wei couldn't help but think of the immortal treasure that flew away from falling Feather City. While Cultivator Wei was lost in thought, the three rogue cultivators hastily flew from the falling rock desert to the town. They stopped when they saw Cultivator Wei. "Why are you three in such a sorry state? Could it be that a body integration stage sand demon has appeared in the falling rock desert?" Cultivator Wei curiously asked when he saw the three rogue cultivators covered in dust, blood trickling from the corners of their mouths, and tattered clothes. The three of them glanced at each other and seemed to be hesitant to speak. "Senior Wei, the three of us discovered that brat." The fat cultivator glanced around and cautiously said in a low voice, "Which brat?" Cultivator Wei asked with a frown. "The brat who stole the immortal treasure," the cultivator in tattered Taoist robes replied. "Really? Where's he?" Cultivator Wei immediately narrowed his eyes. "Senior Wei, even if you gave us 100 times the courage, we wouldn't dare to deceive you. The three of us met that brat a few years ago, and even had a very deep grudge with him. However, we were unable to kill him at that time, and only left a very hidden special mark on his body. Although he has changed his appearance now, we can still recognize him. He stole a bead-like immortal treasure in the falling rock desert, and was then besieged by the leaders of the large and small factions in the falling rock desert. That's why he hates them to the bone. He caused such a huge commotion last night, because he was taking revenge. We were near the battlefield yesterday and saw him fight with our own eyes. However, his strength wasn't weak, and he had an immortal treasure. We didn't dare to rashly approach him. But we saw him fight to the end and use the feather-like immortal treasure to kill his enemies. In the end, he seemed to have suffered a backlash from the immortal treasure and suffered heavy injuries. After he left, the three of us followed him for a while. When he stopped, we were prepared to attack, but he fought with us at the risk of his heavy injuries. We fought with him for a long time, but he didn't use the immortal treasure again. It was enough to show that he was powerless to use it again. But in the end, all three of us were injured and he fled. The special mark that the three of us left on him is still there. We can find his hiding place at any time. Chapter 52. The three spirit severing stage rogue cultivators and the body integration stage cultivator surnamed Wei from the dragon subduing valley quickly found Shaoling Yu. After a fierce battle, Shaoling Yu released the body integration stage snake to escape. Shaoling Yu was not really injured. His strength could be said to be invincible in the spirit severing stage. Even if the three rogue cultivators joined forces, it would be difficult to defeat him. The body integration stage cultivator surnamed Wei was dealt with by the big snake. The big snake and the cultivator surnamed Wei were both at the early stage of the body integration stage, but the big snake had the bloodline of the azure dragon and had condensed a dragon pearl. Even if the cultivator surnamed Wei's magic weapon was quite powerful, he could only be suppressed by the big snake. In the end, Shaoling Yu deliberately pretended that his strength was not enough, as if his old injuries had not healed, giving the three rogue cultivators a chance to hit him. He spat out blood from his mouth and was saved by the big snake. The big snake's speed was not slow. Soon, it took Shaoling Yu and escaped. The three rogue cultivators seemed to be working very hard, but in fact, they were holding back a lot. This was why Shaoling Yu could escape so easily. After this battle, the cultivator surnamed Wei naturally believed in the three rogue cultivators. After the fierce battle, he took out his communication spirit pearl and sent a request for help to the headquarters of the dragon subduing valley. He also explained the specific situation here. Not long after, the dragon subduing valley sent an expert. It was a Deshang stage cultivator who personally came. This Deshang stage cultivator was the last Deshang stage expert of the dragon subduing valley. The reason why the Deshang stage expert was sent over was firstly to take down Xiao Lingyu safely and quickly to avoid any complications. Secondly, it was because they considered the immortal tool in Xiao Lingyu's hands. The dragon subduing valley had a very clear understanding of the power of that immortal artifact. They knew that only Deshang stage experts could withstand the attack of that immortal artifact. Although there were various signs that Xiao Lingyu was severely injured and unable to activate the immortal artifact, who could guarantee that Xiao Lingyu would not fight to the death if she was forced into a desperate situation? The Deshang stage master of the dragon subduing valley quickly found Xiao Lingyu under the leadership of 3 rogue cultivators. However, around the area where Xiao Lingyu was located, there were 2 Deshang stage powerhouses, including Luo Bo and 4 masters of the crossing calamity stage who had already ambushed him. The battle was still without suspense. The dragon subduing valley Deshang stage master and the unification stage cultivator surnamed Wei were surrounded by the experts of the cloud gathering treasure house. In the end, the cultivator surnamed Wei died on the spot in a short time, while the Deshang stage cultivator was seriously injured but successfully escaped. The dragon subduing valley was surrounded by tall mountains on all sides, but the area of the valley was not very large, and those mountain peaks were shrouded in hazy mist. The valley was like spring all year round, with birds chirping and flowers fragrant. Spirit flowers and spirit herbs could be seen everywhere, and the rockery and ponds were dotted with water. At first glance, this place was like a fairyland in a painting. There was a high-level spirit stone vein under the dragon subduing valley, and there was a spirit core that was like a pond in the valley. That pond was not filled with water, but with spirit liquid. This pond was called the Spirit Pool by the disciples of the dragon subduing valley, and the vicinity of the Spirit Pool was the forbidden area of the dragon subduing valley. Ordinary disciples were not allowed to set foot near the Spirit Pool, and only the unification stage cultivators of the dragon subduing valley had the right to occasionally come to the Spirit Pool. Cultivating near the Spirit Pool was naturally twice the result with half the effort. The cultivators of the dragon subduing valley had recently swept away the usual arrogance on their faces, and everyone seemed a little uneasy. Since the birth of the immortal weapon in Liu City, the high-level cultivators of the dragon subduing valley had suffered heavy blows outside, making all the disciples of the dragon subduing valley have a feeling of impending disaster. The Deshang stage dragon subduing valley master who went to the falling rock desert to kill Xiao Lingyu and snatched the immortal weapon fled back to the dragon subduing valley after being injured. He ignored the surprised eyes and salutes of the dragon subduing valley disciples he met along the way and walked directly to the edge of the Spirit Pool. The Deshang stage cultivator stood on the edge of the Spirit Pool for a moment, and then his hands quickly formed a seal and sent the seal into the pool of spirit liquid. Suddenly, the spirit liquid tumbled, forming a vortex in the center of the Spirit Pool. The vortex was like a pillar, but it was hollow. The Deshang stage cultivator fell from the empty space in the center of the vortex, and only stopped after 20 breaths of time because he had reached the bottom of the Spirit Pool. The bottom of the Spirit Pool was paved with top-grade spirit stones, and the Deshang stage master launched the Earth Escape technique again, penetrating layers of top-grade spirit stones to the underground soil layer. After descending for another 1,000 feet, he arrived at a vast underground cave. The spirit chi in this underground cave was extremely rich, and a burst of spirit mist was evaporating as if it was about to liquefy. This spirit mist would pass through the soil layer and reach the Spirit Pool, constantly replenishing the spirit liquid in the Spirit Pool. What was surprising was that in this underground cave, there was a true dragon that was hundreds of feet long lying horizontally. It was just that this true dragon was obviously dead, and the dragon corpse could be intact and not be eroded under such a rich illusion. This true dragon, with fiery red scales all over its body, should be a fire dragon. Even though it had been dead for many years, its corpse could still release scorching heat waves. It was the combination stage dragon that the founder of the Dragon's Subduing Valley had killed. Unexpectedly, its corpse had been preserved by the Dragon Subduing Valley until now. The Dashang stage cultivator had been here more than once. He did not look at the dragon corpse, but walked along the waist of the dragon to the head of the dragon. In front of the dragon's head, there was a stone wall, and on the stone wall, there was a stone door. When the Dashang stage cultivator arrived in front of the stone door, he was about to pull the restriction on the stone door, but the stone door opened by itself. Behind the stone door, there was a hall-style room with the same area. The most conspicuous thing in the room was the 12 silverstone pillars. They were hugged into two groups. Each group had 6 pillars, and they were all arranged in a hexagonal star formation. The 12 pillars had complex and mysterious spell patterns, which were constantly flowing at this time. Obviously, it was a powerful formation that could last for a long time. Between the two groups of formations, that is, between every 6 stone pillars, there was a bead, but one was fiery red and the other was snow white. The fiery red bead was constantly overflowing with hot waves of fire, and there was a virtual dragon around it from time to time. It was obviously a fire attribute dragon bead. If one were to take a closer look, they would discover that the snow white bead was more like a ball of wool. Furthermore, it was formed from countless snow white thin threads. It was not a single bead that was formed from a single entity. The surface of the snow white bead was constantly overflowing with cold mist, and the cold mist seemed to be light, but it could make the space around it constantly fluctuate with white waves. The space of the cultivation world could not withstand the cold air of the snow white bead, which showed the strength of its quality. Although the dragon bead overflowed with high temperature, it could not make the space of the cultivation world fluctuate. It could be seen that the value of this dragon bead was not as good as the snow white bead. However, the 6 stone pillars around the dragon bead were constantly providing energy to the dragon bead and urging the dragon bead to constantly spit out hot waves of fire to burn the snow white bead. After the fire wave was released from the dragon bead, it would be increased in power by the formation formed by the 6 stone pillars. As for the snow white bead, it was trembling as it was being burned by the fire wave. The 6 stone pillars around it not only did not help it at all, but also had the effect of suppressing it. Behind the 12 stone pillars, there was a yellow praying mat. An old man with long black and white hair, wearing a loose gray robe, was sitting cross-legged on the praying mat. At this moment, he had already opened his eyes and looked at the great ascension stage cultivator who had just walked in. Marshal Uncle Chung, this time you must personally take action, or else my dragon subduing valley will be overturned by a strong person. The great ascension stage cultivator cupped his fists and bowed, saying very respectfully, "Calculating the time, there are only a few years left until my 4th scattered immortal heavenly tribulation. But this icy soul heavenly silkworm still hasn't been refined. This old man's life has come to an end. Forget it. Rather than doing useless work here, why don't I go out and try my luck? If I can get an immortal artifact, this old man will have a higher chance of passing through the 4th heavenly tribulation." The old man pondered for a moment, then sighed and nodded. He then stood up and continued, "The icy soul heavenly silkworm is my dragon subduing valley's greatest reliance. Although for countless years, only the ancestor was able to display 1/10 of its power, it can't easily fall into the hands of outsiders. I estimate that in at most 100 years, this icy soul heavenly silkworm will be refined by the fire spirit bead. Although I can't wait until then, and you can't either, once it is refined, my dragon subduing valley will be able to quickly become a top sect in the cultivation world. It is extremely important to our younger generation disciples and the future of the dragon subduing valley. This time, I'll go meet those strong people. You stay here and guard." Disciple will definitely do his best to protect the icy soul heavenly silkworm and wait for Marshal Uncle Chung to return after killing those strong people. The Great Ascension Stage cultivator replied very firmly. For many years, the great elder of the dragon subduing valley, who had the cultivation of a 3rd tribulation loose immortal, had never left the underground cave. However, The current situation did not allow him to endure any longer. He had to step forward bravely and protect the dragon, subduing Valley. Loose immortals were a very special existence in the cultivation world. They all felt that they couldn't pass the heavenly tribulation when they were in the tribulation stage, so they dismembered their bodies in advance. Then, they used all kinds of expensive and rare materials to combine with their soul and nascent soul to reconstruct a body completely composed of energy. Cultivator's cultivation was originally a heaven-defying act, so there was a heavenly tribulation to test the cultivator's cultivation and state of mind. If they could withstand it, they could become a great ascension stage expert. And when their spiritual energy was transformed into immortal spiritual energy, they could ascend to the immortal world. If they couldn't, then they would be annihilated. In order to avoid the heavenly tribulation, they dismembered their bodies, which was even more heaven-defying. Therefore, even if they successfully cultivated the body of a loose immortal and used immortal spiritual energy to construct an energy body, they would still have to accept the baptism of the heavenly tribulation every 1,000 years. There were a total of 9 heavenly tribulations for loose immortals, each stronger than the last. Only after passing through 9 heavenly tribulations could they reconstruct their true body and ascend to the immortal world. However, loose immortals were also very strong. Under normal circumstances, a first tribulation loose immortal strength would not be weaker than a late-stage tribulation passing expert. A second tribulation loose immortal strength was comparable to a great ascension stage expert, while a third tribulation loose immortal strength far surpassed a great ascension stage expert. Chapter 53. Xiaoling Yu knew that this snow-white bead was the most valuable treasure of the dragon's subduing valley, and also the target of the Cloud Gathering House. For the Cloud Gathering House to deliberately get their hands on it, not hesitating to take the risk of angering a third tribulation scattered immortal, and even using an immortal weapon as bait, one could see the value of this snow-white bead. It was definitely of immortal grade, and not of lower quality. Xiaoling Yu didn't know about this bead before, but he knew about the Cloud Gathering House's plan. Ping, and the others would never have thought that Xiaoling Yu would turn back and play the role of the Oriole. In their opinion, even if Xiaoling Yu wasn't killed by that third tribulation scattered immortal, he could only focus on escaping. If the Cloud Gathering House hadn't been unjust to Xiaoling Yu in the end and schemed against Xiaoling Yu, why would Xiaoling Yu turn back to see if there were any benefits to be gained? After this matter, Xiaoling Yu and the Cloud Gathering House would definitely maintain a friendly cooperative relationship. The experts of the Cloud Gathering House would definitely come to kill him at all costs. They definitely wouldn't be willing to work for others. However, in the vast cultivation world and the vast universe, if Xiaoling Yu wanted to hide, it wouldn't be easy for the Cloud Gathering House to find him. Even if they had a powerful background that covered the entire cultivation world, they would still need a lot of luck to find Xiaoling Yu. Xiaoling Yu only needed to find a random planet to hide, and no one would be able to find him if he didn't go to those cultivation continents. As for that earthling with no cultivation, he was actually useless to Xiaoling Yu, because what he knew was very limited. He didn't even know as much as Xiaoling Yu. However, if this matter angered the experts of the Cloud Gathering House and implicated that earthling, Xiaoling Yu would feel a little guilty. What kind of bead is this? It's actually so cold and so resistant to heat. Xiaoling Yu looked at the snow-white bead in front of him that was wrapped in flames, and his heart was filled with doubts. From the looks of it, it should be a magic treasure. Let me see if it can recognize me as its master. Xiaoling Yu thought so and did so. She immediately bit her finger and dripped a drop of blood essence onto the snow-white pearl. The raging flames automatically opened up a gap for Xiaoling Yu's blood essence. After the blood essence dripped into the snow-white bead, it immediately disappeared into it. To be able to absorb blood essence, it really is a magical treasure. Xiaoling Yu was overjoyed. With another immortal treasure like this, she would be able to protect herself in the cultivation world in the future. But what he never expected was that after the snow-white bead absorbed his blood essence, it began to tremble uncontrollably. And every time it trembled, the threads that seemed to be tightly clumped together would loosen a little. The snow-white threads were like tiny tentacles that extended out of the raging fire. Xiaolinyu didn't know what was going on, so she was very nervous. She used her mind to communicate with the phoenix feather and increased the intensity of the flames. Doing so was really useful. The tentacles released by the bead couldn't extend out of the flames. After about 10 minutes, all the tentacles on the bead loosened, revealing a small snow-white worm that was about an inch long. Those countless snow-white tentacles were densely growing all over the little worm's body. "Ice silkworm." Xiaolinyu frowned and exclaimed in surprise. Xiaolingyu's drop of blood essence was right next to the little worm's mouth. The little worm was also sniffing it, as if it wanted to see how it tasted before deciding whether to eat it. It's actually not a magical treasure, but a living thing. Xiaolingyu's expression became even more interesting after sensing the rich aura of life on the little worm. After the little worm sniffed for a moment, it slowly swallowed Xiaolingyu's drop of blood essence that was filled with the primal chaos energy that he cultivated. It was also because of the primal chaos energy that the little worm chose to swallow it. The icy soul heavenly silkworm was not an ordinary creature, but a very noble bloodline. At the same time, it was also a very rare and tyrannical beast in the cultivation world. Although the dragon's subduing valley was lucky enough to obtain it, they had never been able to make it recognize them as its master. In terms of bloodline, the icy soul heavenly silkworm was definitely not weaker than a true dragon. It was just that when this icy soul heavenly silkworm was discovered by the ancestor of the dragon's subduing valley, it had yet to break out of its cocoon. Although it did not recognize the ancestor of the dragon's subduing valley as its master after breaking out of its cocoon, because the first person it saw when it was born was that person, it was especially close to him. It was also because of the help of the icy soul heavenly silkworm that the ancestor of the dragon's subduing valley was able to kill the true dragon of the body integration stage. The true dragon's divine beast aura could suppress the icy soul heavenly silkworm that had just broken out of its cocoon, and the fire dragon's attribute was completely opposite to the icy soul heavenly silkworm's. That was why the ancestor of the dragon subduing valley thought of such a method to refine the icy soul heavenly silkworm. The cultivators of the dragon's subduing valley looked very arrogant on the surface, as if they thought highly of themselves. However, their cultivation methods and systems were actually similar to the other sects in the cultivation world, and there was nothing too outstanding about them. A creature like the icy soul heavenly silkworm was even more delicate than a true dragon, so it would not casually recognize someone as its master. However, Xiaolinyu, who cultivated the 9-turn chaos formula, was a special case in the cultivation world. The technique he cultivated was the supreme divine canon, and the primal chaos energy he cultivated was also the origin energy of the universe. It was much higher than the god power, so it was reasonable for the icy soul heavenly silkworm to recognize him as its master. It was just that Xiaolinyu did not know this, and only thought that his luck was better. After swallowing Xiaolinyu's blood essence, the icy soul heavenly silkworm did not immediately form a mental connection with Xiaolinyu. Instead, it stuck out a pink tongue and kept licking its mouth, like a baby that had not eaten its fill. "Little cutie, do you still want to eat? I have a lot here. Don't be polite with me. Your master is a very generous person." Xiaolinyu really liked this little worm that looked like an ice silkworm and immediately squeezed out a few drops of blood essence from his fingertip. The icy soul heavenly silkworm had been refined by the fire spirit pearl for many years, and it was already at a stage where it could not hold on any longer. It could be said that it was physically and mentally exhausted and was also very weak. It just happened to need something that it liked to be fed, so it naturally swallowed Xiao Lingyu's blood essence without hesitation. A cultivator's blood essence was the energy carrier that was second only to the energy center in the Dantian, and it was also the carrier of a cultivator's life essence. If a cultivator lost too much blood essence, their life would deteriorate, and their cultivation would fall. If it was serious, their lifespan would be depleted, and they would die. In addition, Xiao Lingyu was worried that something would happen to this little fellow after feeding it. Thus, after using 1/3 of the blood essence stored in his body, he did not dare to be generous anymore. After a while, the icy soul heavenly silkworm did not have any more blood essence to eat, so it slowly retracted its thread-like tentacles. However, its entire body occasionally shone with blood-red light, sometimes with white light, and sometimes with red and blue primal chaos radiance. The master recognition process had definitely been completed. Xiao Lingyu retracted the phoenix feather, but the strange coldness that the icy soul heavenly silkworm exuded still made him feel chilly. With a thought, his spiritual sense enveloped the icy soul heavenly silkworm, then pulled the icy soul heavenly silkworm, which had already turned into a snow-white pearl, back into his Dantian. The primal chaos nascent soul was not afraid of the coldness that the icy soul heavenly silkworm exuded, but it was more or less not used to and did not like it. It placed the icy soul heavenly silkworm in front of its chest, then let the phoenix feather continuously emit scorching flames to adjust the temperature in its Dantian. What should I do next? If I were to fly across the starry sky to another cultivation continent to avoid danger, even with the speed of chasing stars, it would take me at least a few decades to fly at full speed. However, after a few decades, even if my parents were to be transported to the cultivation world alive, how would I be able to find them in time? With their age and aptitude, I'm afraid it's even more impossible for them to get the opportunity to cultivate. Even if they have the opportunity, it's impossible for them to achieve much. Xiao Lingyu had already flown out of the Feiyu continent at this time. Looking at the vast starry sky, his heart was as tangled as the vast nebula. After thinking about it, Xiao Lingyu still felt that traveling in the starry sky was really a waste of time. In just a mere 10 years, he had progressed from an ordinary person to a level that even dared to scheme against the masters of the transcending tribulation and the Deshang stage. If he was given another few decades to work hard, who knew if he would have enough strength to dominate the cultivation world? Using the teleportation array to leave the Feiyu continent was the most reliable choice. However, all the powerhouses in the entire Feiyu continent were probably after him. There were also countless powerhouses from other continents who were rushing over. Xiao Lingyu would have to put in some effort to come up with a very feasible plan if he wanted to slip away from under the noses of these powerhouses using the teleportation formation. At present, it was best to find an absolutely safe place and hide for a while. After thinking for a moment, Xiao Lingyu let chasing stars turn around and went all the way to the depths of the desolate ancient forest of the Feiyu continent. Not long after, Xiao Lingyu arrived at a valley in the depths of the desolate ancient forest. There were no people or monsters around, so Xiao Lingyu put away chasing stars and entered a tunnel in the depths of the valley. At the end of the tunnel was a stone wall, but Xiao Lingyu ignored the stone wall and continued to move forward. Surprisingly, his body directly penetrated the stone wall and entered a dark and simple hall. The defense of this ancient god's cave abode can't be broken even by a divine weapon. It should be absolutely safe. However, if I can enter, others can too. If someone barges in and blocks the exit, I'll be trapped in a cocoon of my own making. After Xiao Lingyu entered the ancient god's cave abode, he hesitated again. Xiao Lingyu didn't think for too long. He directly released the icy soul heavenly silkworm and the phoenix feather. Then, he let the icy soul heavenly silkworm float on the stone wall of the exit, while the phoenix feather floated on top of his head to protect him from the cold. Hee, little fellow, if any daredevil barges in, freeze him into a popsicle. Xiao Lingyu instructed the icy soul heavenly silkworm with his mind. Then he sat cross-legged in the light barrier cast by the phoenix feather. My cultivation is now nearing the unification stage, and I haven't tried to use the nascent soul out of my body. Let's try it now. After meditating for a while, Xiao Lingyu waited until his mind was clear and his condition was good. With a thought, he silently used the nascent soul out of his body technique. The chaotic nascent soul in his dantian was originally sitting still, but at this moment, its eyes were shining. Its small hands were constantly moving in front of its chest. Then its body slowly stood up and rose high up. Chapter 54. Xiao Lingyu hid in the ancient god's immortal cave to comprehend the wondrous state of his nascent soul leaving his body. He also let his primal chaos nascent soul help him to refine the phoenix feather. At the same time, he continued to cultivate the primal chaos seal. On the other hand, the flying feather continent was bustling with activity. The flying feather continent was just a newly discovered cultivation continent. It wasn't well known to the cultivation world, because the size of this continent was considered very small among all the discovered cultivation continents. There weren't many high-grade spirit stone veins on this continent, let alone supreme-grade spirit stone veins. Therefore, it was classified as a relatively barren continent. Therefore, not many cultivators were willing to come here in the past. However, recently, the flying feather continent's treasures were discovered one after another. In a short period of time, 2 immortal weapons appeared out of nowhere. It was really hard for the experts in the cultivation world to not notice it, especially those cultivation continents that were closer to the flying feather continent. One after another, cultivators came to the flying feather continent through the teleportation formation. There were cultivators who were searching for the treasures. There were also cultivators who wanted to snatch the 2 immortal weapons. More and more experts of the cultivation world came here, causing the Dragon Subduing Valley, Void Inquiry Stage, and other sects that were originally considered top-notch in the Flying Feather Continent suddenly became weak. Especially the Dragon Subduing Valley, their Body Integration Stage, Dujia Stage, and Great Ascension Stage experts had suffered heavy casualties recently. Not a single Great Ascension Stage expert was left alive. This undoubtedly caused their overall strength to plummet. If it wasn't for the Supreme Elder of the Dragon Subduing Valley, who is also a 3-tribulation loose immortal, the Dragon Subduing Valley would have already ceased to exist. Not many people knew that the Dragon Subduing Valley's greatest loss wasn't their members, but their supreme treasure, the icy soul heavenly silkworm, which was unfortunately stolen. Other than their Supreme Elder, they had almost lost all the support that could continue to maintain a large sect. However, even their Supreme Elder didn't return to the headquarters of the Dragon Subduing Valley after repairing the grand formation of the Dragon Subduing Valley. Instead, he searched for enemies all over the Flying Feather Continent. This 3-tribulation loose immortal who had already gone berserk had created a reign of terror in the Flying Feather Continent. Anyone who he didn't like or thought was very likely to be an enemy was hunted to death by him. Although a 3rd tribulation scattered immortal was not the most powerful existence in the cultivation world, as long as a Grand Ascension Stage cultivator did not have an immortal artifact, it would be very difficult for him to last more than 3 moves. The Void Inquiry Stage and the other major native sects of the Flying Feather Continent had all chosen to keep a low profile during this period of time. They sealed their mountain gates and refused to see any guests. They also did not send their experts out to search for treasures. Their attitude of watching from the sidelines was actually very welcomed by the foreign experts. The instigator of the situation was not Xiao Lingyu, but the cultivators of the cloud gathering treasure house. However, Pinger, Uncle Luo, and the others were incomparably depressed. From their bitter expressions, it could be seen that they felt that their losses were even greater than that of the Dragon Subduing Valley. They had planned for countless years and spent a lot of energy and resources, but in the end, they had actually helped a brat of unknown origin. Furthermore, all of this was directed by them, which made them feel as if they had lifted a rock and smashed it on their own feet. Let's retreat. If that old man finds us, it will be difficult for us to leave. If I were that brat, I would definitely drive my flying spirit tool to an uninhabited planet and hide there for a few hundred years after getting such a great benefit. It's impossible for us to find him. Even if we find him, what can we do? He already has a very powerful fire element immortal tool. It's already enough to deal with the siege of Great Ascension Realm experts. Now, he even has the icy soul heavenly silkworm. Ordinary Great Ascension Realm cultivators can't do anything to him at all. Right now, the flying feather continent is surging like a storm. Experts from all over the world are gathering here. It's really unwise for us to stay here. This goes against our principle of keeping a low profile and developing secretly. The experts of the other continents who were invited by Uncle Luo were all thinking of retreating at this time. This matter was not planned by them. Even if they succeeded, only Uncle Luo, Pinger, and the others who were sent to the Flying Feather Continent would be rewarded. At most, they would only earn a favor from Uncle Luo and the others. Pinger kept frowning. At this time, she was very regretful that she chose to cooperate with Shaoling Yu. However, even in the cultivation world, there was no medicine for regret. She could only suffer in silence. Hearing that the other continents were leaving, she couldn't help but want to persuade them. After all, without these people's help, it was even more impossible to take back the icy soul heavenly silkworm. However, before she could say anything, Uncle Luo spoke first with a smile. He said, "It's very difficult for everyone to come and help once. I think everyone here. Everyone indeed has their own tasks to be busy with. Although we haven't done anything major here, we can't delay everyone for too long. Everyone, please go back. If you need my help in the future, feel free to ask. Then we'll take our leave." Those cultivators didn't dawdle. After saying goodbye, they flew to the Flying Feather Continent's teleportation formation. "Uncle Luo, they're leaving. How are we going to complete the task?" Seeing the experts of the same sect leave one after another, Pinger asked puzzledly. "This matter has already been messed up. It can be seen that our luck is bad. With bad luck, we have no possibility of taking back the icy soul heavenly silkworm. It's better to let them go. If they suffer any major injuries here and the headquarters blames us, we can't afford to bear it. There are some things that you have to rely on your own strength. Others can help you once, but they definitely won't help you for a lifetime." Uncle Luo sighed. "You have to rely on your own strength." Haha, this sentence can also come from a kid like you. It seems that you were not just lucky to be able to transcend the heavenly tribulation and reach the Mahayana stage. Just as Uncle Luo finished speaking, the voice of a middle-aged woman came from outside. Uncle Luo, Pinger, and the others were currently hiding in a cave in a barren mountain. At this time, an old woman wearing a dirt-gray coarse cloth robe was standing there. The voice belonged to a middle-aged woman. She had a hunched back and held a walking stick in her hand. Her hair was as white as snow. She slowly walked into the depths of the cave. Her body was trembling, as if she had one foot in the grave. She looked as if she would die soon. Behind the old woman, there was a woman who looked to be only 17 or 18 years old. The young woman was tall and slender, with a slender waist that could only be grasped with one hand. She was dressed in an azure robe, and there was even a sheathed long sword on the back of one of her arms. In addition, her oval face was very clean and handsome, and she had a cold glint in her phoenix eyes and two thin, long, and straight eyebrows. She really gave people a valiant and formidable feeling. "18th Madam, why are you here? I was just about to send a message to you about the situation here." Uncle Luo was stunned at first. Then, his mature expression immediately changed into a flattering look. He hurriedly went up and bowed respectfully. His hands held the old woman's arm that was not holding a walking stick. "If I didn't come, the cooked duck would have really flown away." The old woman continued to walk forward, and then said with a reproachful tone, "You have made a big mistake, so you were sent here. I wanted to help you and let you go back earlier, so I gave you such a task. I really didn't expect that after working so hard for so long, you would actually make a wedding dress for others when the situation was so good. Speaking of this, the old woman glanced at Ping Er, stopped her footsteps, and said coldly, "What's the use of helping you with your performance? What's the use of the General Alliance keeping you?" Hearing this, Uncle Luo's expression immediately stiffened, and his heart trembled violently. Although he was afraid, he could not help but explain in a low voice, "18th, madam, we really did our best. I really didn't expect such an accident to happen." Pa! Before Uncle Luo finished speaking, the old woman slapped his old face. His already pale face immediately had a bright red palm print, and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. A dignified Dashang stage expert, who was about to ascend to the immortal world, was actually slapped. If others saw this scene, their jaws would definitely drop. Ping Er and Uncle Luo were the closest, and she respected Uncle Luo the most, just like how she respected her father. Seeing Uncle Luo get slapped, although she knew that the other party's strength was unfathomable, she still took a step forward. Her beautiful eyes narrowed, and the aura around her body gradually rose. "Do you know how much effort we spent to complete your mission? We have been doing our best all these years. Even if we don't have any contributions, we have worked hard. What right do you have to treat Uncle Luo like this? Also, since you think that we didn't do well in this matter and didn't succeed, then why don't you try it yourself? Aren't you very strong? Wouldn't it be better if you went to the Dragon Subduing Valley to get the Icy Soul Heavenly Silkworm?" Ping was really angry. She actually used a reproachful tone to speak to the bad-tempered but powerful old woman. "Pinger, how dare you? Hurry up and kowtow to Aunt 18 and apologize." Uncle Luo being slapped was nothing. In his opinion, being slapped was already a very light punishment. However, Ping Er's words caused his mood, which had just improved, to plummet again. "Aunt 18, this little girl is young and ignorant. She speaks without thinking. You must not lower yourself to her level." Uncle Luo once again pleaded for Ping Er with a calm face. "You are Gao Qingshan's daughter, Gao Ping Er, who goes crazy all day in the main alliance's prison, right?" The old woman did not get angry, but asked Ping Er with a strange smile. "So what if I am?" Ping replied in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. "He, as expected of Gao Qingshan's daughter. Your temper is really similar to his. However, you have the same problem as him. You don't know how high the heavens are, and you dare to offend anyone. To tell you the truth, if it wasn't for your father's good relationship with me back then, I wouldn't have given you this mission, so that you would have a chance to stand out in the future. For your father's sake, I won't blame you for your rebuttal. I can even explain to you why I didn't directly take action." Chapter 55. After listening to 18th Mother's explanation, Gao Pinger finally understood the whole story. At this time, her mood calmed down a lot, so she lowered her head and stopped arguing. "You guys are so confident in cooperating with that kid. You should have something on him, right?" 18th Mother waved her hand and got a rattan chair. She sat on it and asked at the same time. The young woman with a cold face and a serious expression stood silently behind 18th Mother. "There is someone he cares about in our hands." Ping responded and went into the cave to pull out the unconscious mortal from Earth. "Why is it just a mortal? What is his background? Why does that kid care about him so much?" 18th Mother gently poked the mortal with her walking stick and asked with a frown, "What is this person's background?" "We have carefully interrogated him. He came from a mortal planet called Earth. Before he came, his planet should have been destroyed by a fight between cultivators, and he was teleported to the Feiyu continent by a cultivator with great magical power." Lobo replied seriously. "Earth!" The old woman suddenly exclaimed in a low voice, looking very strange. The walking stick in her hand immediately swept across the mortal's body, eliminating all the spells that Pinger cast on him. The mortal from Earth quickly woke up. He rubbed his neck and eyes, looking sleepy. Is your Earth a blue planet with an ocean occupying more than half of its surface? The old woman asked the mortals on Earth solemnly. Seeing the old woman's slightly nervous expression, Gao Pinger and Lobo felt very strange. Could it be that 18th Mother already knew about that planet? That's right. How do you know? Could it be that you've been there before? The mortal from Earth asked in surprise. Hee, I haven't been there, but I have heard about it. There have been many peerless masters on your Earth. 18th Mother shook her head and smiled. 18th Mother asked a lot of questions, and then she said to the young woman with a long sword behind her, "You send this guest from Earth away and help him find a safe place to go." The young woman nodded and then left the cave with the Earthling. Seeing Lobo and Pinger's puzzled face, 18th Mother smiled and said, "This person knows very little. He is useless to us, and he is also useless to that kid." The two questions that the kid asked before are already more than half of what he wants to know. He won't care about the life and death of this mortal. It is useless to use this mortal to threaten that kid. If that kid really cares about this person, he won't ruin your good things. 18th Mother, is there a story about the planet called Earth? Lobo asked curiously. Hee, you and Gao Qingshan have loved to listen to my stories since you were young. But the story about Earth, in fact, I only knew about it after I cultivated the body of an itinerant immortal and passed the 3 tribulations, so I didn't tell you before. 18th Mother's attitude suddenly became friendly, and the smile on her face didn't seem to be fake. At this time, Gao Pinger knew that her father and his sworn brother, Uncle Luo, were actually the juniors of Jiang Qijing, and they should have a good relationship. Jiang Qijing's slap on Uncle Luo's face was just an elder teaching a junior a lesson, not a humiliation, which made her feel a lot better. It's not too late for you to tell me now, Lobo said like a child. I can tell you. In the future, when you ascend to the immortal world, if you meet a strong person from Earth, you must be careful. Earth is a very special existence in this vast world of cultivation. The cultivators there have also started to cultivate a long time ago and have achieved very amazing achievements. In ancient times, all the realms were not separated, but in one world. At that time, there were already very strong cultivators on Earth, and according to very ancient records, the 2 races of humans and demons on Earth were the first to cultivate. Even the ancestors of the dragon and phoenix races were born there. When 18th Mother said this, her face was already full of envy and admiration. After a slight pause, she continued, "The strength of the people on Earth is also reflected in their ability to spread and erode. In ancient times, there were few forces in the world of cultivation. They controlled and influenced the world of cultivation. But when the strong people of Earth entered the world of cultivation, everything changed. Whether it was the cultivation system, the alchemy and refining system, or the writing and language, they all gradually leaned towards Earth. Until now, most of the cultivation continents in our world of cultivation are still like this. So even if the mortals on Earth come to the world of cultivation, they can still understand and quickly understand some common knowledge of cultivation and can also communicate with us cultivators. There is such a strange thing, Pinger said, smacking her lips. In ancient times, all the realms were not separated, and there were all kinds of strange things. More strange things have yet to come. At that time, the cultivators on Earth felt that it was too chaotic for all the cultivators to gather in one world, and it was not conducive to the development and improvement of the cultivators who had just entered the world of cultivation. So they proposed the matter of dividing the realms. As soon as this matter was proposed, it was opposed by most of the cultivators. It is said that there was a very wide range of battle at that time, and in the end, countless strong people at the level of gods fell. The cultivators on Earth used their amazing means to intimidate all the forces at that time and made them agree to divide the realms, which led to the current situation of the world. 18th Mother said with a smile. If so, the cultivators on Earth are really very amazing. Luo Bo said with admiration. Too much time has passed, and now no one can clearly say the situation at that time. However, Those strong people on Earth at that time have probably already arrived in the world of gods. Not to mention the world of cultivation. Even in the world of immortals, it would be difficult to find one. It's just that those strong people on Earth in the past used great magical power to move Earth away. For countless years, many cultivators have been looking for traces of Earth, wanting to see what the planet that gave birth to countless strong people looked like, but they have not been able to do so. Earth only exists in the world of cultivation like a legend, and now it has almost been completely forgotten. 18th Mother continued to narrate. Since it was such a place, how could it be affected by the battle of the cultivators and even be destroyed? Pinger asked very suspiciously. I don't know about this. It may be because too much time has passed, and the protective measures left by those strong people in ancient times have failed. It may also be that they just wanted Earth to be far away from the world of cultivation and didn't hide it too deeply. We all know very well that every planet in this world has a lifespan, and there will be a day when it will be destroyed. Perhaps Earth should also be destroyed. Besides, people on Earth were directly moved to the world of cultivation, which also proves that the strong people on Earth left behind measures to protect the human race on Earth. They didn't want the descendants of their birthplace to be extinct. 18th Mother explained with uncertainty. After listening to this explanation, Luo Bo and Ping both nodded silently. However, what makes me curious is who on Earth found Earth and dared to fight on Earth and destroy it. There is certainly no transmission array on Earth that leads to the world of cultivation. If you want to find Earth, you need to fly across the starry sky. However, the dangers in the starry sky are more severe than on the world of cultivation. Even the masters of the great ascension stage don't dare to travel in the starry sky for a long time. The cultivators who fight on Earth, if not the masters of the upper realm, are probably loose immortals, loose devils, or loose demons above the seventh tribulation. And to be able to move so many people on Earth to the world of cultivation out of thin air, it requires at least the cultivation of the golden immortal stage, which also requires at least the cultivation of the seventh tribulation loose immortal. 18th Mother seemed to be thinking about it, and her words were a little intermittent. 18th Mother, do you think that kid is also from Earth? Luo Bo then asked as if he suddenly realized something. The old woman nodded and said, he is most likely from Earth, and was also moved to the Feiyu continent on the day of Earth's doomsday. It's just that I don't know if he had a good cultivation before he came, or if he was just an ordinary person before he came. If it's the latter, his speed of progress is too terrifying. In just over 10 years, he has achieved what he has today. He must have a very powerful master, or obtained a heaven-defying cultivation method or magic treasure. That kid should have a strong backer, Luo Bo said and gave Ping a look. Ping understood and went into the depths of the cave again, and then led the three loose cultivators out. Xiaoling Yu had stayed in the ancient god's cave for more than a month, and he felt that it was not a good idea to be so bored. Although no cultivator had found this place so far, and it was obviously very safe here, he felt that it was better to go out for a walk. Even if he didn't go out, he had to get some fresh air in the wild, ancient forest. Xiaoling Yu was never an indecisive person. With this thought, he put away the chaos nascent soul, the phoenix feather, and the icy soul heavenly silkworm floating at the entrance of the cave. Then he strode out of the ancient god's cave, and at the same time released the big snake that had eaten the fire dragon's meat and dragon pearl. The big snake very obediently turned into a small snake and hid in Xiaoling Yu's sleeve, coiling around Xiaoling Yu's arm. It was worth mentioning that the big snake that had eaten the true dragon's meat and dragon pearl had now grown 4 claws and sharp dragon horns on its forehead. Its bloodline had improved a lot, and the Azure Dragon's bloodline had been activated a lot. It was not far from becoming a dragon. Xiaoling Yu only came out to get some fresh air. He wanted to find some demonic beasts to practice his primal chaos seal. He would not go to the lively places outside the wild ancient forest. He did not set up a chasing star, and he just casually chose a direction and walked. He did not hide his aura, and naturally, He could quickly attract the attention of some demonic beasts with very sensitive spiritual senses. He had just left the valley for less than 2 hours when a spirit-severing stage demonic beast blocked his path. This spirit-severing stage demonic beast looked like a lion, but it had 2 heads. It looked very powerful and mysterious. After it blocked Shaoling Yu, it directly pounced over with a gust of wind. Shaoling Yu did not let the big snake move. Instead, he dodged and began to form seals with his fingers. The double-headed lion's speed was not faster than Shaoling Yu's, so it was very difficult for it to catch Shaoling Yu in a short period of time. After 10 breaths of time, Shaoling Yu let out a light shout, and an yin-yang fish formed by interweaving blue and red colors shot out from between his palms. Boom! After a deafening explosion, the 2-headed lion was nowhere to be seen. It didn't run away, but was blasted into smithereens. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.